Have you ever considered that the zodiac system you're familiar with might actually be a distorted form of an ancient star map from the Bible that reveals God's entire plan for redemption? The Mazzaroth, which gets mentioned in the book of Job, is a celestial story ordained by God himself that came into existence thousands of years before what we now call astrology, and it holds prophetic revelations that will fundamentally transform your perspective on the stars above. In this presentation, you're going to uncover how the enemy took God's celestial gospel and twisted it into the misleading practice of astrology that countless people rely on today. But first, for those who are just joining us, think about pressing that like button and subscribing if you haven't done so yet. Your engagement allows us to keep creating these thoroughly researched videos for your learning pleasure or simply to help you pass some time. Also, share with us your location and the current time where you are. We're creating a worldwide community right here. So, let's get started, shall we? The heavens proclaim. An introduction to the Mazzaroth. Gaze upward on a night when the sky is clear. The stars spread themselves across the blackness like diamonds scattered everywhere. They have existed there from the very beginning, quiet observers of every story humanity has lived. But what if those stars are telling their own story? The world in ancient times understood something that modern people have lost. When they looked up, they saw far more than lights placed at random. They observed a story written in flames across the dark canvas of space. This wasn't the corrupted fortune-telling system that emerged in later times. This was something more ancient, something that was given as a gift. The term Mazzaroth shows up in what many consider the oldest written book. Job encountered it when spoken by God's own voice. The word holds significance. In the Hebrew language, it refers to the constellations, or what we call the Zodiac signs. But remove the layers of corruption that accumulated over the centuries. Take away the horoscopes and the predictions found in newspapers. What you find underneath is remarkable. God positioned these celestial lights with intention and purpose. The book of Genesis explains that he established them for signs, for seasons, for days, and for years. Signs. The word in Hebrew is oth. These heavenly bodies were created to do more than mark the passage of time. They were designed as a communication system. They existed to convey something to us. The stars were never meant for predicting fortunes. That distortion arrived later, after humanity took a divine gift and twisted it into an instrument for manipulation. The authentic message bore no resemblance to predictions about meeting your future spouse on a Tuesday. The message carried far greater scope, more universal significance, more eternal weight. Imagine the night sky functioning as an enormous scroll. Every constellation creates a chapter. Every star fulfills its role in a story that unfolds progressively. The narrative opens with a promise. It progresses through struggle. It concludes with victory. Standing at the heart of this cosmic tale is a single figure, a deliverer, a savior, the promised offspring who would shatter the head of the serpent. This is the Mazzaroth, a gospel written in the heavens before any human being pressed a stylus into a clay tablet, before Moses was given the law, before Abraham departed from his homeland, before the waters of the floods subsided. The story already existed there, revolving quietly overhead. Civilizations throughout the ancient world possessed strikingly similar stories about the constellations. The Egyptians had knowledge of them. The Babylonians understood them. Far-flung cultures divided by entire oceans somehow carried this same celestial narrative forward. This indicates a shared source, a singular point of origin before humanity was dispersed across the earth. The Apostle Paul recorded that the heavens proclaim God's glory to every nation. He quoted from an ancient psalm. Their voice extends into all the earth, their words reach to the world's furthest corners. This was not metaphorical language. The message genuinely reached every place, crossing beyond barriers of language and cultural differences. When God brought light into existence on day one, he divided it from the darkness. On the fourth day, he positioned lights within the expanse of the heavens. The sun to have dominion over daytime, the moon to have authority over nighttime, and the stars, countless stars, each one placed with exactness, each one bearing purpose. These were not afterthoughts in creation. The Creator did not scatter them carelessly like someone tossing salt onto a table. Every location had importance. Every grouping contained meaning. The peoples of ancient times grasped this. They looked upward and read the story inscribed across the sky. Contemporary astronomy has abandoned this understanding. We assign numbers to stars for cataloging purposes. We calculate their distances using light years as our measurement. We break down their chemical makeup through analysis. All of this represents valuable knowledge, but we have forgotten to question what they signify. The Mazzaroth calls us to remember. Join us on a journey through the celestial realm. Travel along the ancient pathways among the stars. Observe what our ancestors observed. Comprehend what they comprehended. The story waiting in the heavens above may well be the most ancient story ever communicated. And yet, it addresses this present moment with clarity that startles us. The corruption known as astrology has caused many to reject the stars completely. But that reaction resembles discarding a priceless letter simply because someone once forged your name on a document. The authentic message still carries weight. The truth continues shining. This is not about consulting your daily horoscope. This concerns reading the thoughts of God. He composed in fire. He composed before ink came into existence. He composed a love letter to all of humanity in the single language capable of reaching every tribe, every tongue, every nation. The journey starts now. Look upward. The heavens are proclaiming something. The question becomes whether we are still paying attention. The first gospel. Celestial prophecy in the book of Job. Job existed before Moses walked the earth, before the Exodus took place, before the law was delivered on mountain peaks surrounded by smoke. His story takes place in the earliest period of human history, when the memory of creation remained fresh and undimmed. The book that carries his name possesses age beyond measurement. Scholars continue debating its precise age, but evidence from the language points toward origins that predate most texts in the Bible. The Hebrew, employed in Job, differs from later compositions. It preserves archaic forms and vocabulary, not found anywhere else. This book carries the atmosphere of the ancient world. In chapter 38, God speaks out of the whirlwind. He poses a series of questions intended to humble human arrogance. "Where were you at the time I established the earth's foundation?" he inquires. "Have you grasped the vast reaches of the earth?" Then arrives a question that provokes curiosity. Can you fasten the chains of the Pleiades? Can you release Orion's belt? Can you bring the Mazzaroth forth in its proper season? There it appears. The word Mazzaroth. God himself employs this term while speaking about his creation. He is not asking Job whether he practices astrology. He is questioning whether Job comprehends the celestial order, the divine purpose behind those revolving lights. Earlier in the book, Job demonstrates knowledge of astronomy that surprises modern readers. He makes mention of the Bear, Orion, and the Pleiades. He speaks about the chambers of the south, possibly referring to southern constellations that cannot be seen from northern latitudes. How did Job possess this knowledge? His companion Eliphaz speaks about the secret counsel of God. Bildad mentions ancient wisdom handed down from fathers. The book of Job reveals a culture immersed in celestial understanding. This was not primitive observation of the sky. This represented sophisticated comprehension of cosmic structure and divine intention. The Pleiades cluster makes multiple appearances in ancient texts, 7 sisters, although most observers can only perceive 6 without optical aid. The Japanese named them Subaru. The Greeks constructed elaborate myths surrounding them, but Job knew them as something different, a cluster held together by chains. Modern astronomy validates this. The Pleiades are bound gravitationally. They travel through space as a single unit. How did ancient Job have this knowledge? He could not measure forces of gravity. He possessed no telescopes. Yet, he spoke of chains binding them together. Orion also receives special attention. The mighty hunter walks across winter skies. His belt, 3 brilliant stars in flawless alignment. Job asks whether anyone can loosen those bands. Once more, modern science uncovers something extraordinary. The stars forming Orion's belt are not bound by gravity. They seem aligned from our vantage point, but exist at vastly different distances from us. They are loose in a certain sense. Job somehow grasped this. This astronomical precision found in the oldest book of the Bible points towards something profound. Job received knowledge from an earlier source. He did not invent these ideas. He inherited them. Where did this understanding originate? The text provides clues. Job lived during the time of the patriarchs. He presented sacrifices as a priest for his own household. No temple had been built. No written Torah provided guidance for his worship. Yet he had knowledge of God. He understood divine order. He spoke of things that would not be recorded in ink for centuries to come. Some scholars place Job in the land of Uz, possibly in the territory of Edom, south and east of what would become Canaan. Others position him in regions near ancient Mesopotamia. Regardless of his exact location, he lived in that ancient world where the night sky carried profound significance. The knowledge of the Mazzaroth that Job possessed did not originate from Babylon. It predated Babylonian astronomy. It did not come from Egypt. It predated the pyramids. This understanding came from a more ancient source, perhaps from the very beginning itself. Consider the timeline carefully. Adam lived 930 years. His son Seth lived 912 years. These patriarchs could transmit knowledge directly across many generations. By the time Job lived, only a small number of human connections separated him from creation itself. What if the Mazzaroth story was given at the very start? What if God revealed to Adam the meaning inscribed in the stars? Knowledge passed from Adam to Seth, from Seth to Enosh, down through Methuselah, who lived longer than any other human before or since. Methuselah's life overlapped Adam's by 243 years. His life overlapped Shem's by 98 years. Shem lived into the lifetime of Abraham. The chain of transmission was brief. The potential for accurate preservation was substantial. Job stood within that stream of ancient knowledge. When he spoke about the Mazzaroth, he spoke about something older than nations, older than written language, as ancient as the stars themselves. God's question to Job carries significance beyond astronomical curiosity. Can you bring forth the Mazzaroth in its season? This is not merely about constellations appearing at certain times throughout the year. This concerns divine timing, appointed seasons, the unfolding of a plan determined beforehand, and written in the heavens before humanity needed it written anywhere else. Job could not bring forth the Mazzaroth. Only God possessed that ability. Only the Creator could ordain both the message and its timing. But Job could read it. He could grasp it. He could transmit it to the generation that followed. The book of Job provides our first glimpse in the Bible of this celestial gospel. The oldest text points toward the oldest message. Before ink existed, there was starlight. Before parchment was used, there was the dark velvet expanse of space. The heavens were proclaiming something. Job heard that proclamation. A clock in the sky, the purpose of the sun, moon, and stars. Genesis begins with darkness covering the deep. Then God spoke, "Let there be light." Light arrived first. Light before light bearers. This puzzles those who read casually. How can light exist before the sun? The text provides the answer by separating the creation of light itself from the creation of vessels that hold light. Photons preceded their assigned containers. On the fourth day, God declared, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky." Notice the plural form, not a single light. Many lights, each with specific function, each with divine purpose. The sun was positioned to rule the day, the moon to govern the night. But the text does not stop at that point. It adds a phrase of critical importance. "And let them exist for signs and seasons, and for days and years." 4 purposes: signs, seasons, days, years. Each word holds deeper meaning than a surface reading would suggest. The Hebrew word for signs is oth. This word appears throughout Scripture. It marks the covenant sign of circumcision. It describes the blood placed on doorposts during Passover. It refers to miraculous wonders. Oth is a marker, a signal, a device for communication. God positioned the celestial bodies for communication purposes. They mark more than time's passage. They speak. They testify. They declare. The word seasons in Hebrew is moed. This word does not mean spring, summer, autumn, winter. Moedim refers to appointed times, festivals, holy gatherings, divine appointments marked on the calendar of heaven. The identical word appears in Leviticus when God establishes his feast days. Passover is a moed. The Day of Atonement is a moed. These are not arbitrary celebrations. These are appointments God scheduled before the world's foundation. The sun, moon, and stars mark these appointments. They announce the arrival of God's ordained festivals. The spring feasts occur when the sun reaches certain positions. The fall feasts align with astronomical events. The heavens function as God's calendar, visible to all peoples in all locations. Days and years require less explanation. The rising and setting of the sun defines the day. The Earth's journey around the sun defines the year. These are the straightforward chronological functions everyone understands. But even these carry prophetic significance. A day in prophetic scripture can represent a year. A year can represent a longer period. The celestial clock does not merely mark time. It marks God's timeline, his schedule for the history of redemption. Consider the precision necessary for the sun, moon, and stars to reliably mark seasons and appointed times. They must move with mathematical accuracy. They must be predictable, dependable, ordered. Modern astronomy confirms this order. We can predict eclipses centuries ahead. We can calculate where planets will be positioned thousands of years into the past or future. The celestial mechanics function with clockwork precision because the Creator designed them exactly that way. Ancient peoples perhaps understood this better than we do. Without electric lights, they lived beneath the stars every night. They observed the moon waxing and waning. They noticed the sun's changing position through the seasons. They recorded which stars appeared during which months. This was not mere curiosity. Their agricultural cycles depended on reading the heavens correctly. Plant too early, and frost destroys the crop. Plant too late, and the harvest fails. The stars provided guidance. The phases of the moon informed them. The sun's position told them when to take action. But beyond agriculture, the heavens communicated something else to them. Something spiritual, something eternal. The constellation Virgo rises during spring, when new life emerges. The constellation Leo dominates summer skies, when the sun reaches its maximum strength. Scorpio appears during autumn as the season of dying begins. Aquarius marks winter, when water falls from heaven as snow and rain. These are not random associations. The celestial narrative unfolds through the year in deliberate sequence. Each constellation appears in its appointed season. Each one advances the story written in the stars. The moon fulfills its own special role. It does not generate light. It reflects the glory of the sun. In biblical symbolism, the moon often represents the people of God, reflecting the sun's glory. The moon goes through phases, sometimes full, sometimes dark, always changing, yet always faithful to its cycle. Jewish festivals align with phases of the moon. Passover occurs at the first full moon following the spring equinox. The Feast of Tabernacles coincides with the full moon of the 7th month. God commanded his people to observe these appointments, and he provided them with the moon as their calendar. The stars serve as witnesses. Job calls them the ordinances of heaven. The prophet Jeremiah speaks about God's covenant with day and night, with the fixed laws governing the heavens. These laws do not change. They cannot be broken. They stand as testimony to the Creator's faithfulness. When God made his promise to Abraham about descendants as numerous as the stars, he did more than make a numerical comparison. He connected Abraham's seed to the celestial testimony. Look upward, Abraham. Count the stars if you are able. Your offspring will carry the message those stars proclaim. The Magi followed a star to locate the newborn king. This was not astrology. This was reading the signs God positioned in heaven. The wise men understood that something significant was marked in the sky. They traveled far, following the celestial announcement of the appointed time. Jesus himself spoke about signs in the heavens preceding his return. The sun would be darkened. The moon would withhold its light. Stars would fall from the sky. These cosmic disturbances signal the conclusion of the age. The heavens declare not just the story's beginning but also its conclusion. The sun, moon, and stars form a divine system of communication. They speak to all nations simultaneously. No translation is needed. No language barrier exists. The sky appears the same whether viewed from ancient Mesopotamia or modern Manhattan. God positioned this system in the sky on day 4. Before humanity appeared on day 6, the message already hung overhead. The clock was established. The signs were positioned. The appointed times were marked. All that remained was for humanity to look upward and comprehend. The original 48, mapping the ancient starry narrative. Before Greece achieved power, before Rome constructed its empire, before the great civilizations we study in history books, there existed a complete celestial map, 48 constellations, not the 88 recognized today, the original 48. These are not Greek inventions. The Greeks received them as inheritance. They renamed them. They attached their mythology to them, but they did not create them. Evidence for this claim appears in multiple ancient sources. The Egyptians knew these constellations. The Babylonians recorded them. The Chinese had parallel systems. The Indian subcontinent preserved similar patterns. Cultures separated by vast distances somehow shared the same basic star groupings. This points toward a common origin. A single source predating the scattering of peoples. A time when humanity still shared one language, one culture, one understanding of the heavens. The Bible speaks about this time. After the flood, all humanity descended from Noah's 3 sons. They settled in the plain of Shinar. They spoke one language. They shared knowledge. They carried memories of the world before the deluge. When God confused their languages at Babel, people scattered. They carried pieces of the original knowledge with them. The celestial story fragmented into various cultural expressions. But the core pattern remained recognizable. The original 48 divide into 3 groups. 12 primary constellations form the ecliptic, the path the sun appears to travel through the year. Each of these 12 has 3 supporting constellations called decans. 12 times 3 equals 36. Add the 12 primary constellations and you reach 48. Each decan elaborates on the story told by its primary constellation. They fill in details. They expand the narrative. They clarify meaning that might otherwise remain obscure. Take Virgo, for example. The primary constellation shows a virgin holding a branch in one hand and an ear of grain in the other. The branch symbolizes the promised branch of righteousness. The grain represents the seed of the woman. Already we observe messianic themes. Virgo's 3 decans complete the picture. Coma Berenices shows a woman holding a child. Centaurus depicts a two-natured being, both human and beast, preparing a sacrifice. Boötes, the coming one, holds a sickle ready for harvest. These 3 images expand Virgo's message. A virgin bears a promised child. A sacrifice prepares the way. A harvester comes. This pattern repeats through all 12 primary constellations. Each tells part of the story. Each is elaborated by 3 decans. Together they form a continuous narrative spanning the entire year. The Greeks corrupted this system. They imposed their myths onto the original meanings. Zeus became associated with various constellations. Hercules replaced an earlier figure. Andromeda's story shifted from its original context. But traces of the original narrative survived. Even Greek myths, stripped of their polytheistic veneer, often retain core elements pointing back to older truths. The Roman writer Manilius, in his work Astronomica, documented the ancient zodiac system around the time of Christ. The Jewish historian Josephus claimed that the children of Seth, the righteous son of Adam, first mapped the stars and passed this knowledge to their descendants. Ancient Arab traditions preserved star names that predate Islam. Many of these names carry Hebrew or Semitic roots. They speak of concepts found in biblical texts. The star Fomalhaut means the mouth of the fish. Algol means the demon's head. These are not Arabic inventions. They are ancient designations preserved in the Arabic language. The zodiac we know today runs from Aries to Pisces, but this may not be the original order. Evidence suggests the ancient zodiac began with Virgo and ended with Leo. This arrangement tells a more coherent story, beginning with the Virgin's promised seed and ending with the lion's final victory. When you arrange the constellations in this order, they form 3 distinct volumes or acts of a cosmic drama. Volume 1, from Virgo to Sagittarius, tells about the coming Redeemer. The Virgin bears a child. The scales weigh the price of redemption. The scorpion threatens, but is crushed. The archer aims his arrow at the enemy's heart. Volume 2, from Capricorn to Gemini, shows the redeemed and their journey. The sea-goat rises from death to life. The water-bearer pours out blessing. The fish struggle, bound together. The ram leads his flock. The bull displays power. The twins show union. Volume 3, from Cancer to Leo, depicts the consummation. The crab holds its prey securely. The lion conquers and reigns supreme. The story reaches its climax and conclusion. Each volume contains 4 primary constellations. Each primary constellation has 3 decans. 4 times 3 times 3 equals 36 supporting images, plus 12 primary ones. 48 total. This mathematical precision suggests design. This is not random grouping of stars. This is architecture, structure, intentional composition. The ancient world understood this structure. They passed it from generation to generation. When civilizations fell, fragments survived. When languages changed, the stars remained. The Greeks tried to claim ownership of this knowledge, but their own historians admitted borrowing from more ancient sources. Eudoxus, often credited with introducing the zodiac to Greece, learned from Egyptian priests. Those priests learned from sources even older. The trail leads backward. Backward through Babylon. Backward through Sumer. Backward through the earliest civilizations to a time before civilization itself. Backward to when humanity still remembered. Backward to the beginning. 48 constellations. 12 primary stories. 36 supporting details. 1 message. 1 redeemer. 1 hope written in fire across the darkness. The ancients knew this. They saw it. They told it. Now we must remember what they understood. Volume 1. The Redeemer. Introducing the prophetic thread. Virgo to Libra. Every story needs a beginning. The celestial narrative begins with a woman and a promise. Virgo rises in the eastern sky each spring. She appears as a woman reclining in the heavens, holding a branch in one hand and grain in the other. The ancients called her the Virgin, not a woman who had borne children and became widowed, a virgin, one who had never known a man. This image stood in the sky long before the prophet Isaiah wrote about a virgin conceiving and bearing a son. The promise existed before the prophecy was recorded in ink. The stars declared it first. The Hebrew name for Virgo is Bethula, meaning virgin. The Arabic name is Adara, the pure virgin. Ancient star charts from Babylon and Egypt show this same figure. The identity remains consistent across cultures. A pure woman, an unblemished maiden. What does she hold? The branch in her hand represents the branch of righteousness, mentioned repeatedly by Hebrew prophets. Jeremiah spoke about a righteous branch who would reign as king. Zechariah called him the branch who would build the temple of the Lord. This branch appears in Virgo's grasp thousands of years before prophets wrote about him. The grain in her other hand symbolizes seed, the promised seed of the woman from Genesis chapter 3. When God confronted the serpent in the garden, he declared that the woman's seed would crush the serpent's head. Eve thought this seed might be her first son, Cain. She was mistaken. The promised seed would come much later, born of a virgin holding the authority of the branch. The brightest star in Virgo is Speaker. The name means ear of grain. This star marks the wheat sheaf in the virgin's hand. Ancient Hebrew called this star Tsemek, meaning the branch. Both meanings merge in this single point of light, the branch and the seed, the king and the sacrifice. Another star in Virgo bears the name Zavijava from Arabic, meaning gloriously beautiful. The virgin who carries this seed is beautiful, pure, chosen for a purpose beyond herself. Virgo's 3 decans elaborate the story. Coma Berenices shows a woman holding a child. Ancient names for this constellation include the desired one and the longed for. The child she cradles is the fulfillment of humanity's deepest longing, the son promised since the garden. Coma Berenices appears above Virgo in the sky. It is a cluster of stars, though ancient observers saw it as a separate constellation. The woman with child completes the picture started by the virgin with grain. The seed becomes a child. The promise becomes reality. Centaurus, another decan of Virgo, shows a remarkable figure. Half horse, half man, 2 natures in one being. The centaur holds a spear pointed downward toward Lupus, the wolf, preparing to make a sacrifice. The 2-natured one offers himself as the victim. This image foreshadows the God-man, fully divine and fully human, who would come as the ultimate sacrifice. The centaur's dual nature speaks to this mystery, neither fully beast nor fully man alone, but both combined. Neither fully divine nor fully human alone, but both united in one person. Boetes, the 3rd decan, marches behind Virgo. He is called the Coming One. He holds a sickle in his hand. His name in Hebrew is Bo, meaning the Coming One. He represents the harvest that follows the planting of the seed. The sickle he carries speaks of judgment and gathering. The harvest separates wheat from chaff. The Coming One will divide the righteous from the wicked. He comes not just to save, but to judge. The brightest star in Boötes is Arcturus, meaning he comes. This massive star, one of the brightest in our night sky, announces the arrival of the Promised One. Job mentioned Arcturus by name when God questioned him. The Coming One was already marked in Job's ancient sky. From Virgo, the path leads to Libra. The Virgin and her seed give way to the scales of justice. Here the narrative shifts from promise to price. Libra shows a set of scales, balanced and ready to measure. Something must be weighed. Some transaction must occur. The virgin's seed has been promised, but that seed comes with a cost. In Libra, we observe the price of redemption. One scale pan hangs lower than the other. In ancient depictions, the cost outweighs everything else. No human currency can balance these scales. Only one price suffices. The Hebrew name for Libra is Mozanim, simply meaning the scales or weighing. The scales of divine justice, the measurement of sin's debt, the calculation of redemption's cost. The brightest star in Libra's lower scale is Zuben el-Ganubi, meaning the price which is deficient, or the purchase. Someone must pay. Something must be bought back. Humanity sold itself into bondage in the garden. Now the scales weigh the price of buying back what was lost. The upper scale contains the star Zuben Eshkamali, meaning the price which covers. One scale shows deficiency. The other shows covering. The debt is measured. The payment is applied. The accounts balance through one sufficient sacrifice. Libra bridges Virgo and Scorpio. The virgin's seed must face the scales before confronting the serpent. The price must be determined before the enemy can be defeated. The pattern follows logic and order. Promise, price, then victory. This is Volume 1's beginning. The prophetic thread starts here. A virgin, a seed, a branch, a child, a sacrifice, a coming one, scales of justice, a price determined. The story has launched. The Redeemer enters the scene. All that follows builds on this foundation. The heavens declare this message in their silent speech. No sound reaches human ears, yet the testimony thunders across the void. Look up at Virgo, rising in spring. See the pattern established before nations formed, before prophets spoke, before scriptures were written. The stars already told the story. They wait for us to remember. The promise of the seed, Virgo, Coma, and Centaurus. The constellation Virgo stretches across nearly 45 degrees of sky. She is the second largest constellation in the heavens. Her prominence matches her importance. She begins the story. She opens volume 1. Everything flows from her. Look at her position. She reclines in the sky as if at rest. Yet her posture suggests waiting. One hand reaches upward, grasping a branch. The other hand holds downward toward earth, clutching grain. Between heaven and earth, she mediates. She connects the divine promise with earthly fulfillment. The branch she holds comes from the root of Jesse. Isaiah saw this branch carrying the Spirit of the Lord. Jeremiah proclaimed this branch would execute justice in the land. Zechariah called this branch by name, the Lord our righteousness. The Virgin holds this future in her grasp. The grain represents life. Wheat must fall into the ground and die before it can bear fruit. Jesus spoke these words about himself before his passion. The grain of wheat that dies produces many seeds. The Virgin holds the seed that will fall into death's soil. Spica, her brightest star, marks this wheat sheaf. Ancient Egypt called Spica the seed-bearer. The Babylonians marked it as significant in their astronomical tablets. The Greeks associated it with harvest and agriculture. All cultures recognize this star as representing seed and fruitfulness. The star's position in the constellation places it precisely in the grain sheaf, not in the Virgin's head or feet, but in her hand where she offers the seed. The placement matters. The seed must be given, offered, surrendered. The Virgin herself represents purity required for this task. Not just physical purity, though that matters in the story. Deeper purity, set apart, holy, chosen specifically because she meets requirements no other person can meet. Mary's question to the angel makes sense in this context. How can this be, since I know not a man? She understood human biology. She grasped the impossibility. The angel's answer pointed her toward the stars she had seen all her life. The Holy Spirit would accomplish what the constellations had proclaimed for millennia. Above Virgo shines Coma Berenices. This cluster caused confusion in later centuries. Some astronomers thought it did not belong as a separate constellation. They tried to absorb it into Virgo or Leo, but ancient star maps consistently show it as distinct. A woman nursing an infant, a mother with child, the desired one finally in human arms. The Hebrew name for this constellation is Coma, meaning the desired. The prophet Haggai spoke about the desire of all nations who would come, the desired one whom every human heart unknowingly seeks, the fulfillment of humanity's deepest longing. Here, he rests in his mother's arms. Coma Berenices contains no bright stars visible to the naked eye. Yet ancient observers counted it crucial to the story. The image mattered more than brightness. A woman holding the promised seed child. The Virgin's grain has germinated. The branch has sprouted. The prophecy becomes flesh. This cluster sits high above Virgo as if the crowned woman rises from the Virgin below. The Virgin holds potential. The crowned woman holds reality. Between them lies the journey from promise to fulfillment. Below and to the east of Virgo stands Centaurus, the two-natured being, half human, half beast. This image disturbs modern sensibilities. We want clean categories, pure types. But this centaur embodies a truth that cannot be expressed with human form alone. The ancient name for this constellation comes from Greek, meaning pierced or thrust through. But the concept predates Greece. The figure shows a being preparing sacrifice, spear in hand, ready to strike. The victim is Lupus, the wolf, another constellation representing the enemy to be slain. Centaurus teaches us about the Redeemer's nature, fully divine, fully human. Not half and half, not a mixture. Both natures fully present in one person. The centaur's dual form illustrates what human language struggles to express. The brightest stars in Centaurus are Alpha Centauri and Beta Centauri. Alpha Centauri is actually our Sun's nearest stellar neighbor. Though invisible from most northern latitudes, it represents the near one, the one who came close, the distant god who became neighbor to humanity. Beta Centauri bears the name Agena, meaning the coming one. The same theme appears again: the one who comes, the expected arrival, the appointed visitor who keeps his scheduled appearance. Another star in Centaurus carries an even more telling name, Toliman, meaning the heretofore and the hereafter. This name captures divine eternity, the one who existed before all things and remains after all things, the Alpha and Omega dwelling in the centaur form. The centaur's posture matters. He kneels on two legs, while his other two legs stand. He is caught between two positions, standing and kneeling, reigning and serving, divine and human. The awkward position perfectly captures the tension of the incarnation. His spear points at Lupus. The wolf must experience the thrust of justice. The enemy faces the two-natured warrior. Only one with both divine and human nature can accomplish what must be done. Divine nature provides the power. Human nature provides the legal standing. The God-man defeats the enemy on humanity's behalf. Ancient Persian astronomy called this constellation Beze, meaning the despised. Isaiah wrote about one despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. The glorious centaur warrior is also the despised outcast. Both images speak truth about the coming one. The three constellations work together. The Virgin provides the means. The crowned mother shows the result. The centaur displays the nature and purpose. Seed becomes child. Child becomes sacrifice. Sacrifice defeats the enemy. Genesis 3:15 set this pattern. The woman's seed would crush the serpent's head, while the serpent struck his heel. Victory through suffering. Triumph through sacrifice. The centaur embodies this paradox. He strikes the wolf while bearing wounds himself. Every spring, Virgo rises. Every year, the story repeats in the sky. The Virgin brings the seed. The mother cradles the child. The warrior prepares the sacrifice. The pattern established before human memory still declares itself overhead. This is the promise of the seed, not abstract theology, not philosophical speculation. A virgin, a child, a two-natured warrior, all written in fire across the void, before prophets spoke it, before scribes recorded it, before apostles proclaimed it. The heavens knew, the stars declared, the ancient ones understood the price of redemption, Libra, the cross, and the victim. From the Virgin and her child, the path leads to scales. The celebration gives way to calculation. The promise meets the price. Libra hangs in the autumn sky, two scale pans suspended from a beam. Ancient cultures universally recognize this image as weighing or measuring. Justice requires accurate scales. Redemption demands precise accounting. The constellation appears between Virgo and Scorpio. After the seed is promised, and before the enemy is defeated, the price must be determined. No victory comes free. Someone must pay. Something must balance the debt. In ancient Babylon, this constellation represented a measuring device. Egypt saw it as scales of justice. The Arabs called it al-Zubana, meaning the purchase. Different cultures, same basic understanding. Something is being weighed to determine a purchase price. The Hebrew name Mozanim simply means the scales. No elaborate interpretation needed. The image speaks for itself. The scales of divine justice that measure human sin against divine righteousness. The measurement finds us lacking. The debt exceeds our ability to pay. Two stars dominate Libra. Zuben el-Ganubi marks the southern scale. The name means the price which is deficient, or the purchase. This scale measures what we owe, the debt, the obligation, the amount due, the accounting of sin across all humanity through all ages. The sum staggers comprehension. Zuben Eshamali marks the northern scale. The name means the price which covers. Here sits the payment. The covering. The sufficient sacrifice. One scale shows the deficit, the other shows the supply. The balance point reveals the transaction of all eternity. In older star charts, one scale hangs lower than the other. The weight tips the balance. The price weighs more than anything else in creation. Nothing in the universe holds equal value to what must be paid for human redemption. Ancient astrologers corrupted this image. They made Libra about weighing human deeds, good works versus bad works, human merit versus human failure. But that is not the original meaning. This is not about measuring human achievement. This is about measuring the price of redemption itself. The 3 decans of Libra complete the picture. Each one shows a different aspect of the payment required. Crux, the southern cross, hangs below Libra in southern skies. Northern observers cannot see this constellation. It remains hidden below their horizon. But for those in southern latitudes, the cross shines brilliantly. The ancient name for this constellation appears in various forms across cultures, but the cross shape remained consistent. 4 bright stars form the distinctive pattern, a vertical beam intersecting a horizontal beam. The instrument of execution. The altar of sacrifice. The brightest star in Crux is A Crux, marking the foot of the cross. The second brightest is B Crux, at the left arm. These stars guide sailors navigating southern waters. They point toward the south celestial pole. But more importantly, they point toward the means of redemption. Job mentioned the chambers of the south in his ancient discourse. Some scholars believe he referenced these southern constellations, invisible from his northern location, yet he knew of them. Knowledge of the complete celestial picture existed even in his era. The cross stands empty in Crux. No figure hangs there. The constellation shows the instrument, not the victim. Yet the stars declare the method before the event occurs. The pattern of redemption established in the sky waits for history to fulfill it. The second decan is Lupus, the wolf. This victim constellation appears near the centaur's spear. The wolf represents the enemy, the prey about to be slain, the sacrifice that must be made. But Lupus carries double meaning. In ancient understanding, the wolf also represented the lamb. One Hebrew word encompasses both concepts. The enemy must be dealt with, but the method involves a lamb, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. Lupus lies dying in the sky. The centaur has struck. The wolf lamb has received its wound. The sacrifice is in progress. The victim has been chosen and accepted. Ancient Arabian star names within Lupus speak of punishment and sacrifice. One star means the victim, another means the offering. The constellation's position near the centaur's weapon makes the meaning clear. Something must experience the thrust of justice. The third decan is Corona Borealis, the northern crown. This circle of stars forms a diadem in the northern sky. A crown awaits, a kingdom promised, a reign to be established. But this crown connects to the scales and the cross. The path to the crown runs through the sacrifice. Exaltation follows humiliation. Glory comes after suffering. The crown appears in the sky near Libra because the price, once paid, leads to coronation. The brightest star in Corona Borealis is Alphecca, meaning the broken one or the separated one. The crown belongs to one who is broken, one who was separated from life itself. Through breaking comes wholeness. Through separation comes reunion. Hebrews chapter 12 speaks about Jesus who, for the joy set before him, endured the cross, despising its shame, and sat down at the right hand of God's throne. The cross led to the crown. The scales measured the price. The cross provided the means. The victim underwent the necessary sacrifice. The crown awaits the faithful completion. These 3 decans surround Libra with the complete picture. The scales determine what must be paid. The cross shows how payment will be made. The victim undergoes the necessary sacrifice. The crown awaits the faithful completion. Ancient peoples saw this pattern long before Calvary's Hill. They understood that redemption required a specific price, paid in a specific way, leading to a specific result. The scales, the cross, the victim, and the crown. All four elements present in the autumn sky. The Apostle Paul wrote that Christ became a curse for us by hanging on a tree. The law declared that anyone hanging on a tree stands cursed. The cross cursed the one nailed there. The victim absorbed the curse. The scales measured both the sin and the sacrifice. Peter wrote that Christ bore our sins in his own body on the tree. The victim carried the weight. The scales tipped under the burden. One scale held humanity's accumulated guilt. The other held one perfect life offered willingly. John saw in his revelation a lamb standing as though it had been slain. The victim who died now lives. The broken one now wears the crown. The scales balance through one sufficient sacrifice. Libra hangs in the sky each autumn. The scales appear. The price is displayed. The transaction completed on a hill far away was announced in the heavens from the beginning. The price determined before the foundation of the world. The scales set, the cross prepared, the victim chosen, the crown waiting. This is the price of redemption. Not cheap grace, not easy forgiveness, costly beyond measure, weighed in divine scales, paid by divine human currency. Accomplished through means foreshadowed in the stars before any human understood what those stars meant. The conflict of the ages, Scorpio, Ophiuchus, and Hercules. From the scales and the price, the story moves to conflict. The enemy appears. The battle engages. Violence enters the celestial narrative. Scorpio crouches in the southern sky, a massive scorpion, tail curved over its back, claws extended, stinger ready. Ancient cultures across the world recognize this constellation as a scorpion or similar threatening creature. The image transcends cultural boundaries. The scorpion represents the serpent of Genesis 3, the adversary who brought deception into the garden, the enemy of humanity who seeks to sting and destroy. Here in the sky, magnified to cosmic proportions, the threat becomes visible. The brightest star in Scorpio is Antares, meaning the rival of Mars due to its reddish color. But ancient names for this star carry darker meaning. In Hebrew tradition, it was associated with wounding and conflict. The scorpion's heart beats red with malice. The scorpion's stinger points toward Libra. The enemy attacks the scales. He wants to upset the balance. He seeks to prevent the payment. He opposes the redemption transaction. His whole purpose drives toward keeping humanity in bondage. But the scorpion's position in the sky reveals his defeat. He lies on his back, claws grasping upward as if already overthrown. The constellation does not show the scorpion advancing victoriously. It shows him toppled, overcome, crushed. Above the scorpion stands Ophiuchus. This constellation shows a man grappling with a serpent. His feet press against the scorpion's heart. His hands grip the serpent's body. The struggle is engaged. The conflict is active. Ophiuchus bears several ancient names. In Hebrew, he was called Ophiuchus, meaning the serpent holder. The Arabians knew him as Aphian, meaning the serpent charmer. The Greeks called him the serpent bearer. All cultures saw the same basic image. A man wrestling a snake. The man's position matters. He stands on the scorpion while holding the serpent. Both enemy forms receive his attention. His heel presses against the scorpion's heart, crushing it. But in crushing the enemy, his foot receives the sting, the wounded victor, the triumphant sufferer. Genesis 3:15 plays out in the sky. The woman's seed crushes the serpent's head. The serpent strikes his heel. Both actions occur simultaneously. Victory and wounding. Triumph and suffering. The paradox of redemption. The brightest star in Ophiuchus is Ras al-Hage, meaning the head of him who holds the serpent. The man's head remains above the conflict. His mind stays clear. His purpose remains firm, despite the struggle. He knows what must be done, and proceeds without hesitation. Another significant star in Ophiuchus bears the name Megrez, meaning the contender or the wrestler. This is no passive observation. This is active combat, a struggle to the finish. Winner takes all. Loser loses everything. The serpent in Ophiuchus's grasp is actually another constellation, Serpens. This snake wraps around the serpent holder in two parts, divided by his body. Serpens caput forms the head. Serpens cauda forms the tail. The man stands between them, separating what was once unified. The serpent reaches toward Corona Borealis, the crown. The enemy wants the crown. He seeks the throne. He desires worship and authority. His reach extends toward what belongs to another, but the serpent holder prevents his grasping. The man blocks the serpent's path to the crown. Below Ophiuchus, striding across the northern sky, comes Hercules, the strong man, the mighty warrior, the one with power to accomplish what must be done. Greek mythology attached elaborate stories to Hercules. They made him a demigod, performing 12 labors. But the constellation predates Greece. The original figure represented the branch, the mighty one, the conquering hero promised from the beginning. Hercules appears in an unusual position. He kneels on one knee. His foot crushes the head of Draco, another serpent constellation. His raised hand holds a club. His other hand grasps a branch, or possibly the skin of a lion. Victory is certain. Yet the posture suggests humility. The kneeling positioning confused later interpreters. Why would the mighty one kneel? Should he not stand triumphant? But the posture captures both aspects of the Redeemer, strong enough to crush serpents, humble enough to kneel, power combined with submission. The brightest star in Hercules is Ras Algethi, meaning the head of him who kneels. Again, the head receives emphasis, the mind remains clear, the purpose stays firm. Kneeling does not indicate defeat, it indicates controlled power, strength under authority. Another star in Hercules bears the name Kornephoros, meaning the branch-bearer or club-bearer. The jewel meaning connects to earlier imagery, the branch of righteousness, the weapon against the enemy. Both meanings merge in the figure of the kneeling warrior. Hercules' foot rests on Draco's head. This dragon serpent winds between the two celestial poles. He is ancient, established, seemingly permanent, but the warrior's heel crushes his skull. The permanent enemy receives permanent defeat. The three constellations around Scorpio tell a complete story. The scorpion represents the enemy's threat. Ophiuchus shows the struggle and wounding. Hercules displays the ultimate victory. From initial conflict through painful battle to final triumph, the pattern unfolds. Ancient peoples watching these constellations understood spiritual warfare. They grasped that an enemy opposed humanity's redemption. They saw that defeating this enemy required both struggle and sacrifice. They knew victory came through one strong enough to crush serpents, yet humble enough to kneel. Paul wrote that Jesus disarmed powers and authorities, making a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them by the cross. The conflict described in Ephesians 6 was displayed in the sky long before Paul wrote. The enemy's defeat accomplished through the cross was written in stars before the cross existed. John's revelation describes the dragon, that ancient serpent called the devil and Satan, being thrown down, the accuser of the brethren cast out. The enemy's ultimate defeat made final. Scorpio, Ophiuchus, and Hercules declare this end from the beginning. Each autumn, Scorpio rises. Each year, the conflict displays itself. The scorpion threatens, the serpent holder wrestles, the kneeling warrior crushes. The pattern repeats because the message remains constant. The enemy is real. The conflict is serious. The victory is certain. This is the conflict of the ages. Not metaphor, not symbolism for abstract concepts. Real enemy, real battle, real blood, real wounds, real victory. All written in the stars before the battle was fought on earth. The heavens declared the outcome before history enacted the event. The pierced Saviour, Sagittarius, and the arrow of God. From conflict comes conquest. From struggle emerges the striker. From defense rises the offensive. Sagittarius enters the scene. The constellation shows a centaur archer, half man and half horse, drawing a bow. His arrow points directly at Scorpio's heart. The target is clear. The aim is true. The shot is about to be released. This centaur differs from Centaurus seen earlier. That centaur held a spear preparing sacrifice. This one holds a bow preparing judgment. Both figures embody this dual-natured form, yet their intentions differ. One offers himself as sacrifice, the other arrives as conqueror. Both of these actions flow from the same Redeemer. The ancient Babylonians knew this constellation as Nergal, linking it with warfare and disease. Egyptian astronomers viewed it as a weapon directed at adversaries. Hebrew tradition identified it as the archer, or the one who releases the arrow. Across different civilizations, this figure's warlike character stayed remarkably constant. The most luminous star in Sagittarius lacks any definitive ancient name that survived into our current catalogues, though several stars within the constellation possess significant meanings. One stellar grouping in the Archer's arrow goes by the name Naim, which translates to the Gracious One, the arrow of grace, the shot that brings mercy, judgment paired with kindness. Another star carries the designation Nahushta, signifying the going or the sending forth. The arrow departs from the bow. The judgment advances. The action moves onward, unstoppable. The arrow aims directly at Antares, the scorpion's heart. Precision holds great importance here. This represents no random shooting. This is deliberate, targeted execution. The enemy's critical organ receives the fatal strike. The wound will be lasting. The archer's form, as a centaur, reinforces the theme of dual nature. The God-man who offers sacrifice is simultaneously the God-man who renders judgment. The humble one who kneels doubles as the warrior who shoots. Both dimensions belong to the complete portrait. Sagittarius stands with rear hooves firmly planted and front hooves elevated. The stance delivers maximum tension for the bow. The position creates power. The form guarantees devastation. When this arrow launches, nothing will halt its flight. The three deacons of Sagittarius expand upon the conquest theme. Each one contributes detail to the victory proclaimed by the archer. Lyra, the harp, hangs suspended in the northern sky. This constellation displays a stringed instrument, but ancient names disclose darker meaning. The Arabic designation is al-Nasr al-Waki, the eagle who tears, or the falling eagle. The vulture, the bird of prey dropping down on the dead. How does a harp transform into an eagle? The answer rests in understanding the sacrifice. The harp symbolizes praise. The eagle symbolizes judgment. The constellation merges both concepts. Praise rises from the sacrifice that delivers judgment on the enemy. The most luminous star in Lyra is Vega, among the brightest stars in our night sky. The name signifies he shall be exalted. Through sacrifice arrives exaltation. Through death arrives glory. The falling eagle rises once more as the exalted one. Another star in Lyra carries the name Zodiac, meaning the sent one, or the eagle. Again, the bird of prey makes its appearance. The sent one arrives as judgment. The eagle descends upon the enemy's corpse. Ara, the altar, emerges below Sagittarius in southern skies. This constellation reveals the burning altar, the place of sacrifice, the location where offerings burn. But this altar burns inverted in the sky. The fire descends downward instead of rising upward. This symbolizes judgment rather than worship. The fire that typically consumes sacrifices now consumes the enemies of the divine. The altar transforms into an instrument of wrath. Ancient star names within Ara speak of completion and fulfillment. The sacrifice is finished. The offering is accepted. The altar's purpose is accomplished. Nothing remains except the burning of chaff. The third deacon is Draco, the dragon. This serpent constellation winds between the two celestial poles. He represents the great dragon mentioned in Revelation, the ancient serpent who deceived the whole world, the enemy in his most elevated form. Draco's position near the pole meant ancient peoples viewed him as the guardian of the heavens. He seemed permanent, established, eternal. His coils wrapped around the very axis of the sky. Surely he could never be displaced. But Hercules' foot rests on Draco's head. The kneeling warrior crushes the cosmic serpent. The seemingly eternal enemy faces terminal defeat. His position near the pole offers him no protection. His ancient establishment cannot save him. The brightest star in Draco is Thuban. 4,000 years ago, due to Earth's axial precession, Thuban served as the pole star. Ancient peoples witnessed the dragon's eye as the center point around which all heaven revolved. The enemy appeared to rule the cosmos. But precession shifted the pole. Thuban lost its position. The dragon's centrality proved temporary. Time revealed his defeat. The heavens themselves testified against his claim to permanence. Another star in Draco bears the name Rastaban, meaning the head of the serpent. This marks the target. The arrow aims here. The foot crushes here. The enemy's head must be destroyed. Sagittarius brings all these elements together. The archer draws his bow. The harp eagle descends. The altar burns in judgment. The dragon writhes under the warrior's heel. Victory proceeds systematically. Each element contributes to the enemy's total destruction. The Apostle John witnessed heaven opened and a white horse appear. Its rider is called Faithful and True. With justice he judges and makes war. His eyes are like blazing fire. Out of his mouth comes a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations. He treads the winepress of divine fury. On his robe and thigh appears the name King of Kings and Lord of Lords. This rider is Sagittarius fulfilled, the archer whose arrow never misses, the judge whose verdict stands eternal, the warrior whose victory remains permanent. Each winter, Sagittarius dominates the southern sky. The archer stands ready, the arrow points true. The deacons surround him with images of victory. The pattern repeats because the message endures. The enemy will be defeated. The arrow will fly. The judgment will fall. The victory belongs to the pierced Savior, who is also the conquering king. This is the pierced Savior. Wounded in the conflict. Victor in the battle. Archer sending the fatal shot. The one who suffered is the one who conquers. The one who knelt is the one who reigns. The one who died is the one who judges. All these aspects merge in the figure of Sagittarius, the centaur archer, the two-natured warrior, the gracious judge. The end of Volume 1. Volume 2, The Redeemed, the Church and its Trials. Capricorn to Gemini. The story shifts. Volume 1 told of the Redeemer, his coming, his price, his conflict, his conquest. Now Volume 2 begins. The focus moves to the redeemed, those purchased by the price, those rescued by the victor. The Church enters the narrative. Capricorn rises in midwinter. This constellation confuses modern observers. A goat with a fish tail. What kind of creature is this? The image seems bizarre until you understand its meaning. The goat represents sacrifice. Throughout Scripture, goats serve as sin offerings. The scapegoat carried Israel's sins into the wilderness. The goat of atonement's blood entered the Holy of Holies. Goats symbolize the substitutionary sacrifice required for redemption. But this goat has the tail of a fish. The back half transforms from land creature to sea creature. The form shows transition, change, movement from one state to another, death to life, bondage to freedom, sea to land. Ancient Babylonians called this constellation the goatfish. Sumerians recognized it even earlier. The image predates recorded civilization. The combination of goat and fish carried meaning across diverse cultures. The Hebrew name for Capricorn is Gedi, simply meaning the kid, or young goat, the sacrificial animal, the one whose blood pays for sin. But this kid doesn't remain dead. The fishtail shows resurrection, rising from water, emerging into new life. The brightest stars in Capricorn carry meaningful names. Deneb al-Gedi means the sacrifice comes, or the judge of the kid. Both meanings apply. The sacrifice arrives. The judgment falls on the substitute. The kid bears what others deserve. Another star is called Nashira, meaning bringing good news. The goatfish brings glad tidings. The sacrifice accomplishes its purpose. Death leads to life. The message spreads. Redemption works. Capricorn's three deacons elaborate the theme of resurrection and victory. Each one shows different aspects of the redeemed life. Sagitta, the arrow, appears as a small constellation in the northern sky. This arrow flies swiftly. The Hebrew name is Sham, meaning the destroyer, or the appointed one. An arrow has one purpose: to strike its target. This arrow represents divine judgment on the enemy, proceeding swiftly to its mark. The arrow flies alone, separated from any bow. The shot has been released. The flight is in progress. The destination is certain. Nothing can recall this arrow or deflect its path. The appointed judgment proceeds toward its target. Two stars in Sagitta bear significant names. One is called Sham, echoing the constellation's Hebrew name. The other is Volans, though this is a later designation. The ancient meaning emphasized the arrow's purpose and certainty. Aquila, the eagle, soars above Capricorn. This great bird descends with prey in its talons. Unlike Lyra's falling eagle, this one flies victoriously. The Hebrew name is Nesher, meaning the eagle, or the torn one. The eagle has torn its prey. The victory is complete. The brightest star in Aquila is Altea, meaning the wounding, or the tearing. The eagle's talons rip and wound. The enemy receives destructive attention. The bird of prey accomplishes its purpose. Another star in Aquila is Tarazd, meaning the torn or wounded. Both the eagle and its prey bear marks of conflict. Victory comes through struggle. Triumph emerges from battle. The eagle doesn't win without cost. The eagle carries multiple meanings in Scripture. It represents strength, swiftness, divine protection. The people were born out of bondage on eagle's wings. As described in Exodus, the eagle in Aquila shows the redeemed being carried by divine power, lifted from death, transported to life, borne on mighty wings. Delphinus, the dolphin, completes Capricorn's deacons. This small constellation shows a fish leaping from water. The ancient name carries meanings of multiplying or pouring forth, life emerging from death waters, abundance following scarcity. The dolphin represents the redeemed soul rising from the grave of baptism. The old life drowned, the new life emerging, death left behind in the depths, life leaping into light and air. The brightest stars in Delphinus form a distinctive pattern. Ancient Arabs called the constellation Al-Salib, the cross. The shape suggested cruciform structure. Even the leaping fish connects to the cross. Life through death. Resurrection through burial. Capricorn stands as the gateway to Volume 2. The sacrifice is complete. The resurrection occurs. The redeemed emerge. Now their story begins. Their trials. Their journey. Their ultimate destination. The transition from Volume 1 to Volume 2 marks a shift in perspective. We've seen what the Redeemer accomplished. Now we see what happens to those he redeemed. The price has been paid. The scales balanced. The enemy crushed. The arrow shot. What comes next? The redeemed enter the story, not as passive observers, but as active participants. Their journey through the remaining constellations will show trials faced, victories won, and ultimate security achieved. Paul wrote to the Romans about being buried with the Messiah through baptism into death. Just as he was raised from the dead through the Father's glory, we too might live a new life. Capricorn depicts this transition. The goat passes through death. The fish emerges into life. The sacrifice transforms into resurrection. Peter wrote that we are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a special possession, that we may declare the praises of him who called us out of darkness into his marvelous light. The redeemed have a purpose, a calling, a destiny. Each winter, Capricorn marks the transition. The old year ends, the new year begins. The sacrifice becomes resurrection. The death becomes life. The bondage becomes freedom. The pattern repeats in the sky. because the spiritual reality repeats in individual souls. Volume 2 has begun. The redeemed step forward. Their story will take them through water, through binding, through deliverance, through leadership, through authority, through union. From Capricorn to Gemini, the journey unfolds. The community experiences what the Redeemer accomplished. The purchased people walk the path their purchaser prepared. This is Volume 2, The Redeemed. Their story matters because they matter. The Redeemer didn't just save for saving's sake. He saved to create a people, a family, a nation, a bride. The remaining constellations tell their story. The journey begins with a goatfish rising from death waters. Where it leads, the stars will show. The fountain of life, Aquarius, and the outpouring. Above us flows an ancient river of stars. The constellation we call Aquarius spreads across the winter sky like a celestial waterfall, pouring forth streams of light into the cosmic darkness. Ancient stargazers saw more than random points of brightness here. They witnessed a divine fountain eternally flowing with the water of life itself. The figure of Aquarius kneels in the heavens, holding an urn from which endless streams cascade downward. His posture speaks of service, of one who gives freely from an inexhaustible source. The star patterns form clear channels of flowing water, visible to any who take time to trace their gentle curves across the night canvas. This celestial water-bearer carries profound meaning in the ancient star story. Where Capricorn showed us resurrection from the depths, Aquarius reveals what flows from that victory. The risen one becomes the giver of living water. The one who conquered death now pours out life to all who thirst. The Hebrew understanding of water goes far beyond simple physical need. Water represents cleansing, renewal, and the very breath of the divine spirit. When the ancient writers spoke of rivers of living water, they pointed to something that could satisfy the deepest longings of the human soul. Aquarius embodies this eternal promise, forever pouring out blessing from the throne of the Most High. 3 companion constellations dance around this cosmic water-bearer, each adding layers to the celestial narrative. Piscis austrinus, the southern fish, swims eagerly toward the flowing stream. Unlike the bound fish of Pisces, this solitary fish moves with purpose and freedom. Ancient astronomers called it the drinker, for it appears to consume the water flowing from Aquarius's urn. The southern fish represents those who have tasted the living water and found it good. They swim not in bondage, but in joy, having discovered the source that truly satisfies. Their position in the sky tells a story of fulfillment, of creatures finding their element and thriving within it. Above the water-bearer soars Pegasus, the winged horse. This magnificent creature represents the swiftness of divine message-bearing. Ancient cultures understood horses as symbols of noble purpose and rapid movement. Wings added the dimension of heavenly origin and unlimited reach. Pegasus carries the proclamation of the living water to every corner of creation. The winged messenger announces that the fountain flows freely, that none need thirst who come with open hearts. The horse's position in the star field suggests movement in all directions, carrying good news to every people and nation under heaven. The third companion shines as Cygnus, the swan in flight. This graceful bird glides through the cosmic river, its neck extended in the posture of one who has drunk deeply. Swans possess the unique ability to dive beneath the surface, while remaining perfectly buoyant. They represent those who can touch the depths of divine truth while soaring in the heights of spiritual understanding. Cygnus embodies the believer who has learned to navigate both the seen and unseen realms. The swan has tasted the water of life and found perfect balance. It neither drowns in the depths nor remains content with shallow waters. Instead, it moves with elegant assurance between heaven and earth. The ancient star watchers understood these patterns as chapters in a larger story. Aquarius does not stand alone in the sky, but connects directly to the surrounding narrative. The water flows from the urn toward other constellations, linking their meanings in an unbroken chain of cosmic storytelling. Modern astronomy has revealed fascinating details about the stars that form these ancient patterns. The brightest star in Aquarius bears the Arabic name Sad al-Malik, meaning the king's lucky one, or the fortunate one of the king. This primary star anchors the constellation's message of royal favor and divine blessing. Another prominent star, Sad al-Sud, translates as the luckiest of the lucky. Ancient astronomers recognized these stars as harbingers of good fortune, not through magical influence, but as reminders of divine goodness. They saw in these stellar names an echo of promises spoken long before their time. The water flowing from Aquarius's urn appears to follow actual celestial geography. Star charts show the stream extending toward multiple constellations, creating visual connections across vast portions of the night sky. This stellar river system reinforces the message that divine blessing knows no boundaries or limitations. Archaeological evidence from ancient Mesopotamian tablets reveals that star watchers in those distant lands understood Aquarius as the one who brings the flood of blessing. They distinguished this beneficial flooding from destructive deluges, recognizing instead a life-giving overflow that renews and restores all it touches. The timing of Aquarius in the celestial calendar carries its own significance. This constellation reaches prominence in the sky during the season when earthly rivers often run low, when wells may fail and springs diminish. The contrast between earthly scarcity and heavenly abundance would not have been lost on ancient observers. They saw in Aquarius a promise that when earthly sources prove inadequate, a celestial fountain flows without ceasing. The stars themselves declare that divine provision operates on a different principle than earthly resources. Where human systems experience shortage, heaven knows only overflow. The relationship between Aquarius and the surrounding constellations reveals a beautiful progression in the star story. From Capricorn's resurrection comes Aquarius's outpouring. From the water-bearer's gift flows the response seen in Pisces. The narrative moves naturally from divine victory to divine blessing to human response. This celestial sequence mirrors the progression described in ancient scriptures. First comes the triumph over death and darkness. Then follows the pouring out of divine spirit and blessing. Finally, creation responds in worship and wonder to such magnificent grace. The ancients saw in these star patterns a promise that transcends time and culture. Aquarius pours forth blessing, not just once, but continuously, not just for a few, but for all who approach with thirst. The cosmic water-bearer kneels eternally in service, forever offering the gift of life to a weary world. When we gaze upon Aquarius in our modern night sky, we witness the same patterns that sparked wonder in hearts thousands of years ago. The stars continue their ancient testimony, proclaiming that divine love flows like an endless river, always seeking those who thirst for something more than earthly satisfaction can provide. The price of deliverance. Pisces, the band, and Andromeda. Two fish swim through the cosmic ocean, their paths forever intertwined by a stellar band that stretches across the winter sky. The constellation Pisces presents a puzzle that troubled ancient observers and continues to intrigue modern star watchers. These are not free fish swimming in celestial waters. They move in bondage, tethered by chains of stars that prevent their escape. The northern fish swims toward the constellation Pegasus, as if drawn by the promise of the winged messenger's good news. The southern fish moves in the opposite direction, pulled toward the darkness of the cosmic depths. Between them stretches a band of fainter stars, clearly visible to careful observers, connecting their fates in an eternal tension. Ancient astronomers understood this cosmic drama as more than mere stellar arrangement. They saw in Pisces the story of humanity itself, creatures made for the celestial realm, yet bound by invisible chains to earthly limitation. The two fish represent the dual nature of human existence, pulled between opposing forces that shape every choice and desire. The band connecting these fish tells its own story through the individual stars that form its length. Ancient star catalogues give these stars names that speak of binding, holding, and restraint. They saw in this stellar rope the very bonds that keep souls from swimming freely in the waters of divine purpose. Near Pisces swims a constellation that adds profound depth to this celestial narrative. Andromeda stretches across the sky as a chained woman, her arms extended in a posture that speaks of both suffering and hope. Ancient observers traced her stellar outline and saw a princess bound by cosmic forces beyond her control. The story written in these stars reveals a pattern that resonates through human history. Andromeda represents those who suffer, not for their own failures, but because of consequences flowing from others' choices. She bears the weight of circumstances she did not create, chained to a fate that seems unjust and inescapable. The positioning of Andromeda in the star field creates a visual connection with Pisces below. The chained woman and the bound fish share the theme of constraint, of noble creatures prevented from experiencing the freedom for which they were designed. Their stellar proximity suggests that their stories intertwine in the cosmic narrative. Ancient texts from the eastern regions describe Andromeda as the bound one or the afflicted daughter. These names carry more than astronomical meaning. They speak to a universal human experience of being held captive by forces that seem too great for individual resistance. The stars that form Andromeda's chains shine with particular brightness in the constellation pattern. Ancient astronomers noted this detail, understanding it as emphasis in the celestial story. The bonds are not hidden or obscure, but prominent features that demand attention from any serious student of the night sky. Archaeological discoveries in the ancient lands have revealed star charts showing Andromeda positioned directly above a great sea monster. This creature, known to astronomers as Cetus, rises from the cosmic depths, with jaws open and fins extended. The chained woman appears suspended above this threat, helpless to escape either her bonds or the danger rising beneath her. The relationship between these constellations creates a scene of desperate need. Andromeda cannot free herself from her chains. The bound fish of Pisces cannot break their connecting band. The sea monster Cetus approaches with destructive intent. The star patterns themselves cry out for intervention from some external force. This celestial drama reflects themes that appear throughout ancient literature and sacred texts. The righteous suffer, while evil seems to prosper. The innocent bear consequences they did not earn. Creatures made for freedom find themselves in bondage they cannot break through their own strength. The specific stars within Pisces carry names that reinforce these themes. The brightest star in the constellation bears the Arabic name Al-Risha, meaning the band or the cord. This star anchors the connection between the two fish, ensuring that their individual struggles remain linked in cosmic unity. Other prominent stars in Pisces have names translating to the bound, the held, and the restrained. Ancient astronomers saw in these stellar designations confirmation that the constellation's message centered on the theme of constraint and the need for deliverance. The seasonal timing of Pisces adds another layer to its meaning. This constellation reaches prominence in the night sky during the period when earthly creatures often struggle for survival. Fish in earthly waters face the challenges of winter scarcity. The contrast between celestial bondage and earthly struggle would have resonated deeply with ancient observers. They understood that Pisces spoke not just of physical limitation, but of spiritual constraint. The bound fish represented souls made for eternal purposes, yet tethered to temporal concerns. The stellar band symbolized all the forces that hold creatures in captivity. Neither possesses the power to achieve self-liberation. Modern astronomical measurements have revealed that the stars forming the band between the two fish actually lie at varying distances from Earth. What appears as a connecting rope in our night sky represents stellar positions scattered across vast reaches of space. Yet ancient observers recognized in this apparent connection a profound truth about the nature of bondage and the need for freedom. The brightness levels of individual stars within Pisces create a visual hierarchy that guides the observer's attention. The band connecting the fish shines more dimly than the fish themselves, suggesting that while the constraints are real, they do not possess ultimate power over those they bind. Ancient star watchers found hope in this detail. They understood that bonds visible in starlight might be broken by power greater than stellar force. The cosmic drama of Pisces and Andromeda sets the stage for intervention from a source capable of shattering chains and breaking bands that hold noble creatures in unwilling captivity. When we observe Pisces in our modern night sky, we witness the same stellar arrangement that moved ancient hearts to contemplate themes of bondage and deliverance. The stars continue their testimony across the millennia, declaring that true freedom requires rescue from a power greater than those forces that create the bonds. The triumphant deliverer, Perseus, Cetus, and the rescue. A hero rises in the northern sky, sword raised high, and victory blazing in his stellar crown. Perseus strides across the heavens in the posture of one who has completed an impossible task. In his left hand, he holds the severed head of a vanquished enemy. His right hand grips the weapon that secured triumph over forces of darkness and destruction. The constellation Perseus tells the story of rescue completed and deliverance accomplished. Ancient star watchers saw in this stellar hero the answer to the desperate need written across the surrounding night sky. Where Andromeda hung in chains and Pisces swam in bondage, Perseus appeared as the one with power to break every fetter and shatter every restraint. The brightest star in Perseus bears the ancient name Mirfak, meaning the elbow of the hero. This star marks the point where celestial strength bends toward action, where divine power prepares to strike the decisive blow against overwhelming darkness. Ancient astronomers understood this star as the pivot point of cosmic rescue. Below Perseus in the stellar field, the great sea monster Cetus rides in the cosmic depths. This massive constellation stretches across a vast portion of the southern sky, its stellar outline clearly depicting a creature of immense size and threatening aspect. Ancient star charts show Cetus with mouth agape, rising from the depths to devour the helpless Andromeda hanging in her chains above. The positioning of these constellations creates one of the most dramatic scenes in the entire night sky. Cetus reaches upward toward the chained woman, while Perseus descends from the celestial heights to intervene. The star patterns themselves tell the story of rescue arriving at the moment of greatest peril. Archaeological evidence from ancient Mesopotamian tablets reveals that astronomers in those distant lands understood this stellar drama as representing the eternal conflict between forces of chaos and agents of divine order. They saw in Perseus not merely a mythological hero, but a celestial sign pointing to ultimate triumph over all that threatens and destroys. The weapon in Perseus's right hand appears in star charts as a curved blade or divine sword. The stars forming this stellar weapon shine with particular brightness during certain seasons, as if emphasizing the power of the tool that secured victory. Ancient observers noted this detail and understood it as divine emphasis on the means of deliverance. More fascinating still is the object Perseus holds in his left hand. This stellar trophy represents the head of the enemy he has vanquished. The most remarkable star in this part of the constellation is Algol, known to ancient astronomers as the demon's head or the winking demon. This star possesses an unusual characteristic that troubled and amazed ancient observers. Algol varies in brightness in a regular cycle, appearing to wink or blink as viewed from Earth. Ancient astronomers tracked this pattern and found it occurred with perfect predictability every 2 days, 20 hours, and 49 minutes. They interpreted this stellar behavior as the death throes of a vanquished enemy, forever held captive in the hero's grasp. Modern astronomy has revealed that Algol's brightness variations result from an eclipsing binary star system, where one star passes in front of another from Earth's perspective. However, the ancient understanding of this phenomenon as representing the subdued enemy remains remarkably appropriate to the constellation's overall narrative. The timing of Perseus's appearance in the night sky creates perfect celestial choreography. This constellation reaches its highest point during the winter months, precisely when Andromeda hangs directly overhead in her chains, and Cetus rises threateningly from the southern horizon. The hero arrives on the cosmic stage exactly when rescue is most desperately needed. The star patterns within Perseus reveal additional details that ancient astronomers incorporated into their understanding of this celestial drama. The hero's feet appear to rest upon the head of the sea monster, suggesting not just victory, but complete dominion over the forces that once threatened destruction. 3 smaller constellations surround Perseus, each adding layers to the rescue narrative. Triangulum, the triangle, appears as a stellar crown or diadem near the hero's head, symbolizing the royal authority that backs his rescue mission. Perseus acts, not as a private adventurer, but as an agent of supreme cosmic authority. Cassiopeia, the seated woman, appears in the northern sky as a witness to the hero's triumph. Ancient star watchers understood her as the mother of the rescued Andromeda, watching from her throne as deliverance unfolds. Her W-shaped stellar pattern remains visible throughout the year in northern latitudes, providing constant testimony to the completed rescue. Aries, the ram, positions itself in the star field as if providing the sacrifice that made rescue possible. Ancient observers noted the connection between the price paid and the deliverance secured. They understood that true rescue requires more than heroic action. It demands sacrificial payment that only the worthy can provide. The stellar magnitudes within Perseus create a visual hierarchy that guides the observer's attention through the rescue narrative. The brightest stars mark the hero's key features: his elbow, his sword, his trophy, his crown. Fainter stars fill in the supporting details, creating a complete picture of triumphant deliverance. Ancient star catalogues from the eastern regions described Perseus using titles that emphasize his role as liberator and champion. They called him the breaker of chains, the crusher of the serpent, and the deliverer of the captive. These names reveal how thoroughly ancient observers understood the constellation's message of rescue and restoration. The relationship between Perseus and the surrounding constellations demonstrates the interconnected nature of the celestial narrative. His victory does not occur in isolation, but as the climactic response to the desperate need established in the star patterns around him. The hero exists to answer the cry of the bound and threatened. The seasonal visibility of Perseus ensures that his testimony of triumph remains available to observers throughout most of the year. During summer months, when the constellation appears in the northern sky after sunset, viewers can trace the hero's outline and contemplate the eternal promise of deliverance that transcends all temporal limitations. When we observe Perseus in our modern night sky, we witness the same stellar arrangement that filled ancient hearts with hope and wonder. The stars continue their testimony across the ages, proclaiming that no bondage is too strong, no threat too great, no darkness too deep for the power of one who comes with authority to set the captives free. The secure flock, Aries, the ram, and the Lamb of God. Above the cosmic hero Perseus stands a constellation that speaks of leadership, protection, and ultimate authority over the scattered flock of heaven. Aries, the ram, positions itself in the stellar field as one who watches over all that lies beneath his care. This is not the weak lamb of sacrifice, but the mature leader who has gained authority through tested strength and proven faithfulness. The star pattern of Aries may appear simple compared to the dramatic scenes played out in surrounding constellations, but ancient astronomers understood that true leadership often operates with quiet dignity rather than flashy display. The ram's stellar outline shows a creature in the posture of watchful attention, head raised to survey the celestial realm and ensure the safety of all under his protection. The brightest star in Aries bears the Arabic name Hamal, meaning the head of the ram, or the gentle one. This stellar designation reveals the dual nature of true leadership: strength sufficient for protection, combined with gentleness toward those who need guidance. Ancient star watchers saw in this bright star the essential quality that distinguishes noble leadership from mere dominance. Near Aries in the star field cluster the Pleiades, 7 sisters of light that ancient observers understood as representing the gathered flock. These stars shine with crystalline clarity, creating one of the most beautiful sights in the entire night sky. Their proximity to Aries reinforces the ram's role as shepherd and protector of the celestial multitude. Archaeological discoveries in the ancient lands reveal that star watchers in those distant regions called the Pleiades, the congregation of the judge, or the assembly of the ruler. They understood these 7 stars as representing those who had been gathered under divine protection, secure in their relationship with the cosmic shepherd who watched over them with tireless care. The positioning of the Pleiades in relation to Aries creates a visual testimony to effective leadership. The 7 stars appear close enough to the ram for ready protection, yet they maintain their individual distinctiveness within the cluster. Ancient astronomers saw in this arrangement the perfect balance between unity and diversity that characterizes healthy communities under wise guidance. Seasonal observations of Aries reveal fascinating details about the constellation's message. The ram reaches its highest point in the spring sky during the season, when earthly shepherds led their flocks to new pastures after the constraints of winter. Ancient observers would have noticed this celestial timing and understood it as confirmation of the constellation's pastoral meaning. The stars within Aries itself tell a story of strength tested and proven reliable. The second brightest star, Sheratan, translates as the sign or the two signs, suggesting that the ram serves as a cosmic marker or waypoint for those who need guidance in their celestial journey. The star's position at the ram's horn emphasizes strength directed toward protective rather than aggressive purposes. A third prominent star, Mazzaroth, carries the meaning the bound or the fat one, indicating abundance and prosperity under the ram's care. Ancient astronomers understood this stellar name as evidence that those under the ram's protection lack nothing necessary for their well-being and growth. The relationship between Aries and the constellation Perseus below reveals an important aspect of celestial leadership. The hero who rescued Andromeda from her chains and vanquished the threatening sea monster now looks up to the ram for ongoing guidance and authority. Even the mightiest deliverer acknowledges the shepherd's supreme position in the cosmic hierarchy. Ancient star charts show additional constellations that complete the pastoral scene around Aries. The triangle, or triangulum, appears as a stellar fold or enclosure where the flock can find shelter during cosmic storms. This small but distinct constellation reinforces the theme of divine provision and protection that surrounds the ram's position in the star field. The seasonal behavior of the Pleiades adds another layer to their meaning in relation to Aries. These 7 stars appear brightest during the months when earthly shepherds faced their greatest challenges in protecting and providing for their flocks. Ancient observers interpreted this stellar timing as heaven's reminder that divine shepherding operates according to principles that transcend earthly limitations. Weather folklore from many ancient cultures connected the appearance of the Pleiades with seasonal changes that affected pastoral activities. Clear visibility of all 7 stars indicated favorable conditions for flocks and herds. Obscured vision of some stars warned of challenging times ahead. These observations reinforced the connection between the celestial shepherd and earthly pastoral concerns. The stellar magnitudes within Aries create a visual pattern that ancient astronomers interpreted as displaying the qualities of noble leadership. The brightest stars mark the head and horns, emphasizing wisdom and strength. Fainter stars outline the body, showing substance and stability. The overall pattern suggests power held under careful control and directed toward protective purposes. Ancient tablets from Mesopotamian archives describe Aries using titles that emphasize the ram's role as gatherer and protector of the scattered. They called the constellation the shepherd of the celestial flock, the guardian of the assembly, and the one who leads to green pastures. These designations reveal how completely ancient star watchers understood the constellation's pastoral message. The connection between Aries and surrounding constellations demonstrates the integrated nature of celestial leadership. The ram does not stand alone in cosmic isolation, but maintains relationships with all the stellar players in the heavenly drama. His authority extends over the rescued Andromeda, the victorious Perseus, and the gathered Pleiades alike. Modern astronomical studies of the Pleiades have revealed that these 7 stars actually form part of a larger stellar cluster containing hundreds of members. Ancient observers, limited by naked eye visibility, saw only the brightest representatives of this vast celestial congregation. Their interpretation of these visible stars as the gathered flock proves remarkably appropriate when considered in light of modern discoveries. The proper motion of stars has carried Aries and the Pleiades across the sky together for thousands of years, maintaining their visual relationship despite the vast distances between them. Ancient astronomers, unaware of stellar motion, saw only the stable pattern that reinforced their understanding of the ram's eternal care for the celestial flock. When we observe Aries in our modern night sky, we witness the same stellar arrangement that inspired ancient hearts to contemplate themes of divine shepherding and eternal security. The stars continue their testimony across the ages, declaring that true leadership combines strength with gentleness, protection with guidance, and authority with love. The government of God, Taurus, Orion, and the coming judge. A great bull charges across the winter sky, his stellar form blazing with cosmic fire and displaying the ultimate authority that governs all creation. Taurus positions himself in the heavens as one who possesses unshakable strength and irresistible forward motion. This is not the gentle ram of pastoral care, but the supreme power that rules with justice and executes judgment throughout the celestial realm. The constellation Taurus presents one of the most visually striking patterns in the entire night sky. The bull's head and horns shine with particular brilliance, dominated by the fiery red star Aldebaran, whose name means the follower or the leader. This stellar beacon marks the bull's eye, glowing with an intensity that ancient observers interpreted as the unwavering gaze of cosmic authority. Behind the bull's head spreads the magnificent star cluster known as the Hyades, forming the distinctive V-shape that outlines the creature's face and horns. Ancient astronomers called this stellar grouping the Congregation of the Judge, or the Assembled Ones. They understood these stars as representing the divine council that supports and witnesses the execution of perfect justice. Near Taurus blazes the most spectacular star group visible to earthly observers, the Pleiades, or Seven Sisters. These crystalline points of light create a celestial jewel that has captured human imagination across all cultures and ages. Ancient star watchers saw in the Pleiades the sweet influences of divine blessing, the rewards granted to those who align themselves with cosmic justice. The seasonal timing of Taurus reveals profound significance in the constellation's message. The bull reaches prominence in winter skies during the time of year when earthly creatures face their greatest tests of survival. Ancient observers would have noted this celestial timing and understood it as heaven's declaration that ultimate authority operates most powerfully during seasons of greatest need. Below Taurus in the star field stands the magnificent figure of Orion, the hunter. This constellation presents the most detailed and recognizable human form in the entire night sky. Ancient astronomers saw in Orion's stellar outline a mighty warrior, clothed with cosmic authority and armed with weapons of divine justice. The three stars forming Orion's belt create one of the most famous stellar patterns known to humanity. Ancient cultures across the globe recognized these stars and incorporated them into their understanding of cosmic order and divine authority. The belt's perfect alignment suggested to ancient minds the precision and orderliness that characterize ultimate justice. Orion's right shoulder blazes with the red supergiant star Betelgeuse, whose name translates as the coming of the branch or the arm of Orion. This stellar beacon marks the strength and reaching power of the celestial judge. Observers from ancient times took notice of the star's reddish hue and saw in it the flames of pure fury, directed at everything that corrupts and lays waste. The left foot of the hunter gleams with the blue-white brilliance of Rigel, a name that translates to the foot of the Great One, or the left foot of the giant. This stellar beacon stands for the solid foundation on which cosmic justice rests, and the steady footing that allows the mighty hunter to chase down everything fleeing from righteous judgment. Hanging between Orion's belt and his sword is the renowned Orion Nebula. To those viewing with the naked eye, it appears as a hazy star within the hunter's blade. Stargazers of old named this celestial feature the opening, or the hole in the sky. They saw it as the point where divine light pierces through cosmic darkness, bringing illumination to what is hidden and revealing all that seeks to stay concealed. The dynamic between Taurus and Orion forms one of the night sky's most striking scenes. The powerful bull charges forward across the celestial expanse, while the great hunter advances with weapons at the ready. Ancient watchers of the stars grasped this stellar confrontation as symbolizing the instant when supreme authority confronts every power that would dare challenge divine sovereignty. Evidence from archaeology, uncovered in ancient Mesopotamian societies, shows that astronomers in those faraway lands interpreted this stellar scene as portraying the day of the great hunt, when cosmic justice would be completely carried out across all of creation. In the star formations, they perceived a guarantee that no evil would forever evade the grasp of divine authority. The brightness levels of stars within both constellations form visual hierarchies that ancient astronomers read as depicting ranks of authority within the cosmic order. The most luminous stars indicate the positions and powers of greatest importance. Dimmer stars complete the supporting frameworks that uphold order across the celestial domain. Contemporary astronomical measurements have uncovered intriguing facts regarding these stellar arrangements. The Hyades cluster is actually positioned much nearer to Earth than the bright star Aldebaran, which merely seems to belong to the cluster from our earthly vantage point. Nevertheless, the ancient interpretation of these stars forming a unified council remains strikingly fitting to their visual presentation. The Pleiades cluster holds hundreds of hot blue stars wrapped in reflection nebulae that cause the whole group to radiate with otherworldly beauty. Cultures around the ancient world spun legends concerning these seven sisters, consistently viewing them as symbols of divine favor and celestial blessing. Their closeness to the bull strengthens themes of reward that follows righteous judgment. Orion houses some of the most magnificent stellar phenomena known in modern astronomy. The constellation encompasses multiple supergiants, scorching blue stars, and regions where stars are actively forming. The stellar makeup of the Hunter points to cosmic forces of enormous power, working on scales that make earthly comprehension seem tiny. Ancient catalogues of stars from diverse cultures portrayed Taurus and Orion, using names that stress their functions as executors of final justice. They named the bull the Charging One, the Lord of the Herds, and the Ruler of the Seasons. They gave Orion titles such as the Mighty Hunter, the Prince of Light, and the Coming Judge of all the Earth. The constellation formations that surround Taurus and Orion fill in the scene of cosmic government assembled. Auriga, the charioteer, shows up as the one guiding the celestial powers toward their designated aims. Gemini, the twins, stands for the flawless unity that defines divine rule. Perseus, the hero, displays the rescue missions that spring from righteous authority. The visibility patterns of these constellations guarantee that their witness stays accessible to earthly watchers during the winter months, exactly when ancient communities encountered their toughest trials and most urgently required reminders of ultimate justice and divine authority, functioning beyond the constraints of temporary circumstances. When our eyes fall upon Taurus and Orion in today's night sky, we behold the identical stellar configurations that stirred ancient hearts to reflect on themes of cosmic justice and divine government. The stars press on with their witness through the ages, announcing that final authority belongs to power mighty enough to charge through every barrier and track down every corruption that would dare oppose the flawless order of creation. The union of heaven and earth, Gemini, and the rulers. Two forms walk side by side across the spring sky. Their stellar shapes are entwined yet separate, symbolizing the supreme unity that governs both heavenly and earthly domains. Gemini offers not simply twin stars, but rather the deep mystery of dual natures joined in flawless harmony. Ancient astronomers recognized in this constellation the peak of the redemption narrative's second volume, where heaven and earth merge under one highest authority. The constellation Gemini shows two distinctly outlined human figures positioned shoulder to shoulder in the starfield. The northern form, marked by the radiant star Castor, shows up in ancient star maps as a ruler gripping a scepter of authority. The southern form, anchored by the golden star Pollux, presents a powerful man handling instruments of craftsmanship and creative force. These two stellar personalities don't depict separate individuals vying for control. Ancient watchers of stars grasp them as complementary facets of a single supreme ruler who holds both regal authority and the capacity to work directly in creation's restoration. The constellation speaks of leadership that merges transcendent power with close involvement. Castor, the northern star, carries a name signifying the ruler, or the one who possesses. This stellar marker has captivated ancient and modern astronomers alike because of its intricate nature. What shows up as a single star to those viewing with the naked eye actually comprises multiple stellar elements orbiting in elaborate patterns. Ancient astronomers, unaware of this complexity, still identified Castor as symbolizing the many-sided character of supreme authority. Pollux, the southern star, radiates with warm golden light and holds the meaning the ruler who comes to labor, or the one who toils. Ancient watchers observed that Pollux burns with more constant brilliance than Castor, reading this stellar trait as proof that genuine authority shows itself through steady service instead of irregular shows of power. The placement of these two main stars establishes a visual equilibrium in the constellation that ancient astronomers saw as depicting perfect unity between differing aspects of divine rule. Neither star overpowers the pattern. Both add vital light to the total message inscribed in the stellar configuration. Archaeological finds from ancient Mesopotamian records show star charts positioning Gemini at the finish of the Celestial Story's second major volume. Ancient astronomers understood this constellation as the high point toward which all the earlier stellar action had been advancing. The union shown in Gemini settles the tensions and struggles set up in preceding constellations. The connection between Gemini and nearby star patterns strengthens this theme of settlement and unity. The constellation shows up in the sky following the dramatic rescue sequences of Perseus and Andromeda, following the assembly depicted in Aries and the Pleiades, following the judgment symbolized by Taurus and Orion. Gemini exhibits the peace and order that flow from finished redemption. Ancient star records portray the two figures of Gemini using complementary names that disclose their shared purpose. They labeled the northern figure Apollo, meaning the ruler or the destroyer of evil. They titled the southern figure Hercules, signifying the mighty traveler or the one who comes to help. Taken together, these names span both the transcendent and immanent dimensions of divine rule. The seasonal rising of Gemini contributes levels of significance to the constellation's meaning. These stars achieve prominence in late spring and early summer, precisely the period when ancient peoples saw the rebirth of life following winter's hardships. The celestial timing reinforced the constellation's theme of restoration and the founding of beneficial order. Star traditions from different ancient cultures show remarkably uniform interpretations of Gemini spanning various civilizations. Egyptian astronomers perceived the constellation as depicting the pharaoh's divine and human essences unified in one individual. Greek watchers comprehended it as showing the balance between mortal accomplishment and immortal intent. Hebrew star observers read it as the final realization of promises spoken to their forebears. The stars that trace the outlines of the two figures establish visual links that ancient astronomers interpreted as connections of eternal unity. Rather than standing separated in solitary authority, the stellar rulers of Gemini seem bound by common purpose and reciprocal support. Their celestial arrangement exhibits leadership founded on cooperation instead of rivalry. Contemporary astronomical research has disclosed fascinating information regarding the stellar makeup of Gemini that enriches ancient readings. Castor's multiple star arrangement hints at complexity and depth in the essence of cosmic authority. Pollux' steady golden radiance points to the stable base on which enduring rule must be built. The constellation's location in relation to the celestial equator establishes a distinctive viewing angle that ancient astronomers wove into their grasp of its significance. Gemini extends across both northern and southern sections of the sky, metaphorically connecting different celestial territories and showing authority that rises above regional limits. Extra stars within the constellation design complete the specifics of the two figures, presenting them outfitted for both royal ritual and hands-on work. Ancient star charts show one figure carrying symbols of authority, while the other holds tools of building and restoration. This stellar imagery bolsters the theme of leadership that blends elevated status with direct participation. The Milky Way flows through a section of Gemini, forming a visual background that ancient watchers read as the river of light streaming from the throne of highest authority. This stellar arrangement suggested to ancient minds that the unified rulers of Gemini pulled their power from the very wellspring of cosmic light and order. Nearby constellations round out the picture of settled rule and cosmic balance. Cancer, the gathering place, shows up close by as the protected fold, where all the rescued and redeemed discover their eternal home. Leo, the lion, burns in the neighboring starfield as the final expression of royal authority and complete victory over all opposing powers. The star brightness levels within Gemini form a visual ranking that leads watchers through the constellation's declaration of unified authority. The most brilliant stars indicate the heads and hearts of the two figures, highlighting wisdom and compassion as the core traits of perfect leadership. Supporting stars sketch the tools and emblems of their joint reign. Ancient astronomical writings from the eastern lands portray Gemini as the place of perfect government and the throne of the United Kingdom. These designations show how fully ancient star watchers grasped the constellation as depicting the final aim toward which all celestial history advances. The founding of rule that flawlessly blends justice with mercy, power with service. When we look at Gemini in today's night sky, we see the culmination of the stellar narrative's second great movement. The stars keep up their ancient witness, proclaiming that true authority discovers its highest form not in separated dominance, but in perfect unity between transcendent power and close care for all creation. Volume 3. The Consummation, Judgment, and Final Victory. The stellar account arrives at its concluding movement as summer constellations climb in the eastern sky. Having watched the story of redemption's promise and the path of the redeemed assembly, the stars now disclose the final consummation of all cosmic intentions. This third and closing volume of the celestial story speaks not of starts or developments, but of finishing and eternal founding. Cancer, the crab, shows up first in this concluding stellar symphony. Unlike the quick fish or ascending eagle, the crab advances with purposeful certainty across the starfield. Ancient astronomers found in this creature's distinctive traits a perfect emblem for the ultimate gathering of all who belong to the great celestial assembly. The constellation Cancer poses a challenge to modern watchers due to its comparatively dim stars, but ancient star observers had darker skies that disclosed details unseen by most contemporary viewers. They outlined the crab's stellar shape and grasped it as depicting not the earthly crustacean, but the final secure home where the redeemed would discover eternal rest. At the center of Cancer sits one of the most extraordinary sights in the whole night sky, the Beehive Cluster, recognized by ancient astronomers as Praesepe, or the Manger. This stellar assembly shows up to naked eye watchers as a cloudy spot of light, but closer study shows it holds hundreds of separate stars clustered together in cosmic accord. Ancient star watchers named this cluster the Multitude, the Offspring, and the Countless Seed. They saw these assembled stars as depicting the satisfaction of ancient promises that descendants would be as plentiful as the stars of heaven. The cluster's spot at the core of the secure home reinforced themes of divine faithfulness and finished blessing. Around the central cluster, ancient astronomers pinpointed two notable stars that they labeled the northern and southern asses. These stellar indicators show up in star charts as gentle creatures bearing burdens toward the celestial manger. Ancient watchers saw in these stars emblems of humble service that delivers precious gifts to the site of final gathering. The seasonal appearance of Cancer contributes deep meaning to its role in the stellar account. This constellation attains prominence during the summer solstice, the moment of year when daylight reaches its greatest length in northern latitudes. Ancient communities would have identified the celestial timing as heaven's announcement that the gathering occurs in the season of maximum illumination. The connection between Cancer and nearby constellations forms a picture of shift from struggle to consummation. Behind the crab in the stellar sequence rest all the scenes of conflict, rescue, and restoration that mark the earlier volumes of the star story. Forward stretches Leo, the closing constellation, blazing with the guarantee of final victory and eternal founding. Beneath Cancer in the starfield writhes Hydra, the great water serpent. This massive constellation extends across a huge section of the southern sky. Its stellar loops symbolize the final and greatest foe that must be faced before the cosmic story arrives at its finish. Ancient astronomers grasped Hydra as embodying all the powers of chaos and ruin that have resisted divine purposes across celestial history. The arrangement of Cancer, above the menacing serpent, forms a visual witness to security that goes beyond even the most terrible dangers. The assembled community rests safely in their celestial home while the enemy coils below, powerless to reach or upset their peace. Ancient star watchers found in this configuration a guarantee that no force of darkness holds power enough to break through the final refuge. Archaeological findings from ancient Mesopotamian tablets show that astronomers in those far-off lands understood the Cancer-Hydra connection as depicting the ultimate conflict and the last enemy to be brought down. They read the star patterns as heaven's announcement that even the most stubborn resistance to divine rule would finally face defeat. The star brightness patterns within Cancer establish a visual design that ancient astronomers interpreted as showing the characteristics of complete security. The cluster at the constellation's center shines with combined brilliance that surpasses any single star, indicating that assembled community holds strength unavailable to separated individuals. Ancient star records portray Cancer using names that stress its function as the final goal for all the cosmic journey's travelers. They named it the possession, the secure fold, the place of rest, and the eternal home. These titles show how thoroughly ancient watchers grasped the constellation as depicting the destination toward which all stellar history heads. The link between Cancer and the earlier constellations shows the woven nature of the celestial narrative's ending. The secure gathering receives those who were saved by Perseus, guided by the ram of Aries, judged worthy by the authority of Taurus and Orion, and brought together under the perfect rule shown in Gemini. Modern astronomical work on the Beehive cluster has disclosed that it holds roughly 1,000 stars, linked together by shared gravitational pull. Ancient watchers, limited to viewing only the brightest cluster components, still identified in this stellar grouping a deep truth regarding the essence of cosmic community and eternal security. The natural movement of stars has kept Cancer's fundamental pattern across recorded human history, guaranteeing that the constellation's witness stays uniform through generations. Ancient astronomers who first traced the crab's stellar form saw basically the identical pattern that modern watchers observe when they direct their eyes toward this section of the summer sky. Weather cycles in many ancient societies linked the rising of Cancer with the coming of secure, stable conditions beneficial for gathering and festivity. These earthly observations strengthen the constellation's celestial declaration of safety, supply, and the gladness that arrives from finished journeys and satisfied promises. When we look at Cancer in today's night sky, we see the identical stellar configuration that moved ancient hearts to think about themes of final security and eternal assembly. The stars press on with their witness through the ages, announcing that divine faithfulness guarantees every promise, discovers satisfaction, and every journey arrives at its meant destination in complete safety and joy. The Lion of Judah, Leo, Hydra, and the final conquest. The King of Beasts rules the spring sky with a stellar grandeur that has seized human wonder across every culture and era. Leo burns forth in cosmic glory, his star-formed mane streaming across the heavens, his mighty frame announcing final victory over every power that has dared oppose divine authority. This is not the mild lamb of sacrifice, nor the patient ram of shepherding care, but the victorious lion who rules with complete power and unshakable sovereignty. The constellation Leo shows one of the sharpest and most identifiable animal shapes in the whole night sky. Ancient star watchers outlined the lion's form with respectful wonder, understanding that they witnessed the celestial emblem of highest royal authority. The backward question mark of stars shaping the lion's head and mane establishes an unmistakable stellar mark that has directed navigators and sparked poets across human history. At the core of the lion blazes Regulus, the royal star whose title means the heart of the king, or the little king. This bright stellar marker indicates the spot of final authority in the cosmic ranking. Ancient astronomers named Regulus the Star of the King and identified it as one of the 4 royal stars that designated the seasons and ruled the celestial realm. The lion's mane spreads across a major portion of the spring sky, outlined by a distinctive sickle-shaped array of stars that ancient watchers called the sickle of the king or the crown of authority. This stellar configuration hints at both the flowing locks of royal dignity and the curved blade that reaps all resistance to divine rule. Behind the lion's powerful shoulders shines Denebola, signifying the tail of the lion, or the judge who comes. This star marks the far end of the lion's stellar shape and stands for the extensive reach of royal power that touches every part of creation. Ancient star watchers grasped Denebola as the point where royal authority encounters and overpowers all that would escape from righteous judgment. Below Leo in the southern sky extends the enormous constellation Hydra, the great water serpent. This stellar arrangement stretches across a wide portion of the celestial realm, making it the biggest constellation visible from Earth. Ancient astronomers understood Hydra as depicting the complete total of all evil powers that have fought divine purposes across cosmic history. The placement of Leo above Hydra forms the most striking confrontation in the whole star story. The lion shows up, with his mighty paw positioned solidly upon the serpent's head, proving complete victory over the powers of chaos and ruin. Ancient star watchers recognized in this stellar configuration the final realization of the first promise spoken to humanity, that the seed would crush the serpent's head. The serpent's stellar coils reach beneath multiple constellations, hinting that its reach has affected every part of the cosmic action. However, Leo's spot directly above the creature's head proves that royal authority holds power enough to overcome even the most widespread and persistent evil. Two smaller constellations round out the scene of ultimate judgment that surrounds the lion's victory. Crater, the cup, shows up as a stellar container positioned on the serpent's back. Ancient astronomers read this constellation as the cup of wrath that has been emptied out upon all corruption and defiance against divine rule. Close by flies Corvus, the raven, shown in star charts as a dark bird of prey, consuming the leftovers of the defeated serpent. Ancient star watchers grasped this constellation as depicting the total consumption and ultimate disposal of everything that has fought the founding of perfect order. The seasonal appearance of Leo's prominence adds deep meaning to the constellation's declaration of final victory. The lion climbs to its peak position in spring skies during the season when earthly life springs from winter's death and shows the power of renewal over decay. Ancient watchers would have identified this celestial timing as heaven's announcement that victory over death forms the highest triumph of divine authority. Archaeological finds from ancient Egyptian temples show detailed star maps presenting Leo placed at the heart of celestial worship and encircled by emblems of eternal victory. Egyptian astronomers named the constellation the Great Lion and saw it as depicting the pharaoh's divine authority mirrored from the supreme cosmic king. Mesopotamian tablets portray Leo using names that highlight the constellation's function as the ultimate victor in cosmic struggle. They labeled it the Great Light, the flame of the furnace, and the burning one who consumes the enemy. These ancient titles show how completely star watchers grasp the lion as depicting the final triumph of light over darkness. The star brightness levels within Leo establish a visual ranking that directs watchers through the constellation's declaration of highest authority. Regulus burns at the core of the pattern, stressing that genuine power streams from within instead of being forced from outside sources. The surrounding stars of different brightness show the complete range of royal reach, extending from the central throne. Ancient star records show that cultures around the world identified Leo as depicting supreme feline authority, despite having no exposure to African lions. This widespread recognition hints that the stellar pattern itself communicates truths that go beyond cultural limits and speak straight to human grasp of final power and triumphant authority. The connection between Leo and the earlier constellations shows the woven nature of the whole stellar narrative's ending. The lion depicts the ultimate disclosure of authority that has been expanding and developing across the cosmic story. Every rescue, every assembly, every show of power has indicated this final display of victorious royalty. Modern astronomical measurements have shown that Regulus spins so quickly it has become flattened at its poles and bulges at its equator. This stellar trait forms a star that seems almost completely round when observed from Earth, while actually rotating at nearly the top rate achievable for a stable star. Ancient watchers, unaware of this rotation, still identified in Regulus the perfect emblem of dynamic royal authority. The spring triangle shaped by Regulus in Leo, Spica in Virgo, and Arcturus in Bootes establishes a vast stellar marker that helps modern watchers find the lion's spot in the night sky. Ancient astronomers employed similar stellar connections to follow Leo's movement through the seasons and link the lion's declaration with nearby constellations. The ecliptic flows straight through Leo, meaning that the sun, moon, and planets consistently cross the lion's stellar territory during their celestial travels. Ancient watchers read these celestial visits as heaven's acknowledgement of the lion's highest authority and the honor that all cosmic powers must render to the final king. When our eyes fall upon Leo in today's night sky, we see the climactic ending of the ancient stellar account that started with Virgo's promise and traveled through all the phases of redemption's cosmic action. The stars keep up their eternal witness, announcing that every story discovers its perfect conclusion in the triumph of the lion who rules with justice, loves with mercy, and reigns with power that recognizes no limit. The Gospel in the Stars, correlating the Mazzaroth with Scripture. The ancient star watchers held a deep grasp that modern society has mostly lost. They identified that the identical divine voice that spoke creation into being also wrote a magnificent story across the canvas of night. This celestial account, inscribed in points of light and stellar designs, communicates the same tale that later discovered expression in written revelation given to human prophets and writers. The connection between sky and scripture springs not from human creativity, but from divine purpose. The Creator who arranged the stars in their paths also breathed life into the sacred writings that disclose his intentions for creation. Both witnesses emerge from the identical source and announce the same eternal truths regarding redemption, restoration, and the final triumph of divine love. Starting with Virgo, the celestial story proclaims the arrival of a promised seed through the stellar picture of a virgin carrying a branch. This astronomical prophecy discovers its scriptural match in the ancient promise that the woman's seed would triumph over the serpent's destructive force. The star patterns announce what sacred writings affirm, that redemption would arrive through supernatural birth and divine action. The constellation order from Virgo through Leo tracks the identical narrative curve that Scripture discloses from promise to realization. Each stellar chapter matches specific dimensions of the redemptive design that reveals itself across biblical history. The stars declare what written revelation clarifies, that divine love chases fallen creation through every required phase of rescue and restoration. Libra's scales glow in the night sky as the celestial announcement that perfect justice requires a cost for cosmic restoration. The constellation's declaration of necessary payment discovers clear voice in scriptural teachings regarding substitutionary sacrifice and the requirement of atonement. Both sky and scripture announce that love and justice merge in the work of redemption. The striking scene of Perseus saving chained Andromeda from the threatening sea monster reflects biblical reports of divine deliverance from powers too vast for human strength. The stellar action proclaims what sacred writings detail, that rescue arrives from outside human ability and comes exactly at the instant of deepest need. Aquarius pours out the water of life in stellar symbolism that completely matches scriptural promises of spiritual outpouring and eternal fulfillment for all who thirst. The constellation's declaration of divine blessing freely provided matches biblical calls for all to come and drink without cost from the fountain of life. The binding shown in Pisces mirrors the scriptural understanding of humanity's bondage to powers beyond individual strength to shatter. Both stellar pictures and sacred writing recognize the reality of spiritual limitation and the need for outside liberation from chains that hold souls imprisoned. Ancient astronomers grasped that the three major volumes of the star story matched the three main aspects of biblical revelation. The first volume, presenting the Redeemer, matches Old Testament prophecies and promises. The second volume, showing the redeemed, fits New Testament reports of rescue and community building. The third volume, disclosing consummation, aligns with biblical visions of final victory and eternal founding. The timing of constellation appearance across the year forms a celestial calendar that matches remarkably to the seasonal festivals founded in biblical tradition. The spring showing of redemption constellations aligns with Passover themes of deliverance. Summer stars presenting, gathering, and security match harvest festivals. Autumn constellations of judgment fit days of awe and responsibility. Archaeological findings from ancient Hebrew sources show that biblical writers held detailed knowledge of constellation designs and their significance. Job's mentions of stellar groups prove familiarity with the identical astronomical knowledge that shows up in other ancient Near Eastern societies. The sacred writings don't dismiss stellar symbolism, but welcome it as another witness to divine revelation. The Hebrew word Mazzaroth shows up in Job's discourse and clearly points to the zodiacal constellations that communicate the redemption story. This biblical mention establishes that constellation symbolism held legitimate spiritual importance in ancient Hebrew understanding. The stars functioned as divine communication instead of human creation. Psalm writings speak of the heavens announcing divine glory and the firmament presenting divine handiwork. These scriptural passages recognize that celestial bodies function as carriers for divine communication to all peoples regardless of their access to written revelation. The worldwide visibility of stars makes them perfect bearers of universal truth. Biblical prophecies often use astronomical pictures to portray future divine actions. Mentions of darkened sun, dropping stars, and shaken heavens employ celestial symbolism to convey spiritual realities. The identical divine voice that speaks through written words also communicates through stellar configurations and cosmic events. The Book of Revelation holds extensive astronomical symbolism that matches ancient constellation meanings. The woman dressed with the sun fits Virgo. The great red dragon aligns with Draco. The Lion of Judah matches Leo. These biblical pictures confirm, instead of oppose, the spiritual importance of stellar patterns. Ancient Hebrew festivals were scheduled based on lunar and stellar patterns, proving integration between celestial watching and spiritual practice. The biblical calendar relied upon astronomical events, disclosing that divine revelation welcomes, instead of dismisses, the witness of the stars. The connection between constellation mythology and biblical account reaches beyond surface similarities to structural matches that point to common origin. Both traditions speak of virgin birth, sacrificial redemption, cosmic struggle, divine deliverance, royal authority, and ultimate victory. These common themes indicate universal divine communication instead of cultural borrowing. Modern scholarship has shown that constellation designs identified by ancient societies worldwide display remarkable uniformity despite geographical distance. This worldwide identification of stellar stories hints that the star patterns themselves convey truths that rise above cultural limits and speak straight to human spiritual grasp. The biblical focus on divine faithfulness discovers perfect voice in the unchanging character of stellar patterns. Generations fade, but the constellations keep their positions and press on with their witness. The stars function as permanent witnesses to divine promises that last beyond human lifetime and cultural shift. When Scripture speaks of signs in the heavens, it recognizes that celestial events function as divine communication to earthly watchers. The stars work not as controllers of human fate, but as witnesses to divine character and intentions that shape cosmic history based on eternal principles of love and justice. The weaving together of astronomical and scriptural witness forms a unified testimony that builds up instead of weakens biblical authority. Both forms of divine communication spring from the identical creative voice and announce the same eternal truths regarding the essence of final reality and the fate of creation. His story in the stars, a conclusion and a call to worship. The stellar path that started with a virgin's promise finishes with a lion's triumph, having followed the complete arc of divine love's chase of fallen creation. From east to west across the vault of heaven, the constellations communicate one unified story, the tale of redemption planned before time started and carried out across history with flawless wisdom and constant faithfulness. Each constellation contributes its distinctive voice to the cosmic chorus that sings of love stronger than death and grace greater than human failure. Virgo proclaims the promise. Libra announces the cost. Perseus shows the rescue. Aquarius discloses the blessing. Leo declares the victory. Together, they create a tapestry of light that reveals the character of the one who spoke them into being. The ancient star watchers held wisdom that modern society urgently needs to recover. They grasped that creation itself functions as the first and most widespread form of divine revelation. Before any human language built writing systems, before any culture generated sacred literature, The stars already announce the glory of their Creator to every nation under heaven. This celestial witness rises above all barriers that separate human communities. Rich and poor alike can watch the identical night sky. Educated and simple minds see matching stellar patterns. Every culture, regardless of its earthly spot, witnesses the identical cosmic story inscribed in points of light. The stars make divine truth accessible to all humanity without consideration of social rank, economic state, or educational achievement. The widespread character of stellar revelation clarifies why constellation stories show up with striking uniformity across cultures that had no interaction with each other. From ancient Mesopotamian tablets to Native American traditions, from Egyptian temple walls to Chinese astronomical writings, the identical basic account springs from independent observations of matching star patterns. This widespread identification of celestial significance indicates truth that starts beyond human creativity. The stars themselves convey eternal realities that speak straight to the human heart, regardless of cultural shaping or religious background. The night sky functions as heaven's first missionary, bearing the declaration of divine love to every corner of creation. Yet the stars don't work as magical influences that direct earthly happenings or fix human fate. Ancient wisdom separated clearly between reading the stars as divine witness and trying to control stellar powers for personal benefit. The constellations function as witnesses to divine character, not as instruments for fortune-telling or fate control. The twisting of stellar symbolism into astrological superstition depicts humanity's tendency to worship creation instead of the Creator. When people seek direction from star positions rather than divine revelation, they turn from the genuine declaration inscribed in cosmic light. Astrology distorts the stars' rightful witness into empty promises of human control over cosmic powers. The biblical rejection of astrological practices doesn't dismiss the stars themselves, but resists their misuse for aims never meant by their Creator. Sacred writings that prohibit consulting astrologers at the same time celebrate the stars as announcements of divine glory and witnesses to eternal intentions. The distinction rests in whether we worship the message carriers or the one who dispatched the message. Recovering authentic stellar symbolism demands separating between constellation patterns as divine communication and astrological arrangements as human control. The Mazzaroth communicates God's story inscribed in starlight. Astrology tries to make the stars communicate human stories centered on earthly worries. One indicates upward toward divine glory. The other curves inward toward human ambition. The seasonal movement of constellations establishes a natural liturgical calendar that summons earthly watchers to recall eternal truths across the shifting year. Spring stars proclaim resurrection and fresh life. Summer constellations honor gathering and security. Autumn patterns stress judgment and justice. Winter groups announce victory and final triumph. This celestial rhythm calls human hearts to bring earthly experience into line with cosmic intention. The stars offer perspective that goes beyond temporary worries and links daily life with eternal significance. Night following night, season following season, year following year. The constellations press on with their faithful witness to divine love and final purpose. The technological brightness of modern society has stolen from most people clear starlight and the wisdom it provides. Light pollution hides the very revelation that ancient peoples thought essential to spiritual grasp. Urban residents may spend whole lifetimes without clearly viewing the Milky Way or identifying major constellation patterns. This break from connection with natural celestial revelation impoverishes human spiritual experience in ways that sophisticated theology can't completely replace. The stars provide a form of divine meeting that speaks straight to the heart without demanding intellectual analysis or organized study. Their witness works through beauty and wonder instead of argument and clarification. Yet the stellar witness stays accessible to all who will step beyond artificial lighting and raise their eyes toward the cosmic show overhead. Dark sky reserves still exist, where modern watchers can experience the identical celestial revelation that stirred ancient hearts to worship and wonder. The stars wait patiently for human eyes to rediscover their eternal declaration. The complete star story from Virgo to Leo proclaims that divine love works on a scale huge enough to cover all creation, yet close enough to rescue every individual soul. The identical power that positions stars in their paths also seeks connection with each human heart. The cosmic and personal dimensions of divine love merge in the stellar witness that reaches across the heavens. The constellations announce that no earthly power, no spiritual force, no cosmic principle holds final authority, except the one who fixed the stars in their patterns and keeps their paths across time. Every lesser authority must at last bow before the highest power that rules both celestial and earthly domains, with flawless justice and constant love. Standing under the star-filled sky on a clear night, watching the identical patterns that stirred Abraham to trust divine promises, that gave comfort to Job in his pain, that led wise men to search for the promised king, modern hearts can join the cosmic chorus of worship that rings across time and space. The stars summon every human soul to identify its spot in the divine story that spans all creation. They call earthly watchers to discover their part in the cosmic action of redemption and restoration that changes individual lives while renovating whole universes. The stellar witness announces that no life is too insignificant to count in divine intentions, and no story too shattered to discover healing in divine love. When we truly grasp the declaration inscribed in starlight, when we identify our spot in the cosmic account that reaches from promise to realization, the only fitting response is worship. The stars themselves bend in eternal adoration before the one who spoke them into being. How much more should human hearts overflow with praise toward the Creator who wrote the story of salvation across the vault of heaven for all eyes to observe and all hearts to grasp?